How is he? An elderly voice asked as he saw the Chunin enter the room. He's finally calmed down and went to sleep, Hokage-sama. He's had a long day. Iruka Amino said to Sarutobi, the Sandaime and present Hokage of the Hidden Leaf Village, Konoha. Sarutobi nodded at him as Iruka took a seat in the room. I still can't believe what I had seen. Even though I saw it with my own eyes, I have trouble believing I saw him do what he did. Naruto, what happened back there? He muttered to himself as he thought back. Today was the day of the Genin test, and Naruto Uzumaki, the village's loudest, most obnoxious, and perhaps worst ninja, had failed to pass it. An outcast by the village that shunned him due to having in secret the Kyuubi inside of him sealed in him. He was regarded as little more than a braggart and a prankster. Although Iruka knew it was just his way of getting people to notice him, as he had very few friends. After failing, Naruto was approached by an instructor, Mizuki, who was Iruka's best friend, and told him that he could help him out. Naruto had believed his words, and the two had went, and Naruto had taken a scroll which he said was supposed to help him master basic jutsu. Unknown to Naruto, it was actually the Seal of Scrolls, a forbidden scroll of jutsu that was locked away and prevented from being used as it was deemed too dangerous. Naruto had taken it, and when Iruka went to find him, Mizuki had appeared and ambushed them. Mocking him and Naruto's dream of becoming Hokage, Mizuki revealed that Naruto was the Kyuubi vessel, which was strictly against orders as he wasn't meant to know. Taunting the boy and oblivious to Naruto's growing rage, Mizuki had bit off more than he could chew when Naruto revealed he had learned one of the jutsus and overwhelmed him. Mizuki was to be binded by Iruka and brought into questioning, but in a last burst of strength he broke free and cursed Naruto, calling him a cursed demon and son of a whore who would never be loved, and spat at him. What next was a blur. Naruto in an instant let out a blood-curdling roar as his eyes turned red in fury. To Iruka's shock and Mizuki's horror, two bones sprouted out of Naruto's shoulders. He pulled the bones, which transformed into blades, out and charged, followed and impaled Mizuki directly in the stomach, going right through his body. As fast as it had happened, Naruto's eyes turned back and Mizuki dropped to the ground in critical condition. Naruto's rage-filled eyes turned into ones of shock and disbelief at what he had just done. An Anbu team arrived shortly afterward and sustained Mizuki's condition while Iruka took Naruto home. The Anbu members, being sworn to secrecy at what had happened, took Mizuki to a hospital to save his life so they could interrogate him. The boy was barely able to say a thing, stunned and horrified at what he had just done. Iruka managed to get him to calm down finally, and eventually the boy drifted off to a dreamless sleep. Iruka had returned to the Sandaime's office, who had seen everything on his crystal ball. I've never seen anything like that. He pulled out his own bones and used them as weapons. It's unheard of, he said as he shook his head. No, it's not. It may seem impossible, but now that I look at it, I'm surprised this happened. Sarutobi said to him, and Iruka raised his head. Was it because of the Kyuubi? Iruka said, and he felt a sickness in his stomach to think that that beast could do such a thing. Not exactly. You remember Naruto's mother? Kushina Uzumaki from Whirlpool, correct? Sarutobi said, mentioning the boy's mother who died. Yes, it was believed when Whirlpool was destroyed she was the only survivor. Iruka said, as it was well known what had happened to the former village that had been destroyed in the wars. Sarutobi lit up his pipe. Not many know this, but the Uzumaki clan is related to a clan from Mist. They're cousins, if you can call them that. The Uzumaki clan and Kaguya clan. Kaguya? Iruka stuttered out in disbelief, not believing his ears. The Kaguya clan was a widely known and feared clan of barbarian-like savages that lived in Mist. They lived for one purpose: battle. It was rumored that 1,000 samurai fell to one Kaguya before he himself was put down. Their skills with taijutsu and fighting were almost unheard of, as if they were demons in human flesh that could manipulate their bones to fight with. When he was a child, Iruka's father would tell him stories about them that would have the young boy fearful that one might appear. Yes, the Kaguya clan. The Uzumakis and Kaguya clan come from the same family tree, and the Uzumakis, although not all of them, could also use their Kekkei Genkai Shikatsumaku. The Uzumakis thankfully did not have the bloodlust their kin possessed. But Shikatsumaku is perhaps the strongest of all known bloodlines, perhaps greater than the Sharingan. The body becomes hard as steel, injuries fade as if in an instant, and as you saw, they can use their own bones to create weapons. The Uzumaki and Kaguya clan once had an alliance due to family ties, but eventually both fell into the pages of history. He said to him as the Kaguya clan was wiped out years ago and so was the Uzumaki clan. And now Naruto now wields perhaps the most powerful of all abilities. Even his fingernails can become deadly weapons if he wields them correctly. But perhaps it is best that this remains hidden from him. After what he's been through he wouldn't understand what to do, and who knows how the villages would act towards him. Some such as Kumo or Mist may try to kidnap him in hopes of harnessing Shikatsumiyaku for themselves. Iruka did not know what to make of it, as he still could not believe what he saw. The poor thing, Sarutobi said and shook his head. He has learned that he is a Jinchuriki and is now unaware that he is the last of both clans. A shame. If the Kaguyas had joined up with us and given up their warmongering ways, then perhaps Shikatsumiyaku would not fade into history and Naruto would have a family. Iruka nodded and stood up and went to leave when Sarutobi called out to him. He turned and Sarutobi tossed his something which he caught. A Hitai-8? He asked, looking at it as he held the item with had the leaf symbol in his hands. Correct. Naruto did perform a Bushin Jutsu today, so that means he passed the Genin test and is now 1. Sarutobi said with a smile to him. I see, I'll give it to him tomorrow when I drop by. Iruka said, smiling as well, and left the office. Sarutobi watched him leave and, making sure he was gone, reached towards his desk and pulled out a letter. Hastily he began writing on it, writing a short but powerful sentence on it that the receiver would notice. If the person who got this answered, then perhaps Naruto would no longer have to bear the burden. He wasn't alone, there was another who he had been watching for quite some time. Putting it in a scroll with his seal on it, he made hand seals and gently bit his thumb and summoned a small monkey. I have an important task for you, my friend, he said to it, and gave it to it, which carried it in its tail and sniffed it curiously. Take this to a building in Rice Country. It is important that the person gets it. You'll recognize him immediately as he has 2 red dots on his forehead. Now go. The monkey hooted and hollered and sped out the window, and Sarutobi watched as it scampered across the rooftops and soon was out of sight with his hopes encased in that letter. 2 days later, a white-haired figure was seated on a small bridge. His eyes were closed as he was there by himself. His eyes opened and he revealed a pair of green eyes. What was most unique about him was his 2 red dots he had. He wore a simple white outfit with a purple bow around his waist, which was the type of clothing worn by his clan. He wore nothing else and had no visible items or weapons on his person. To an unobservant person he was harmless. But he was far from it. In the blink of an eye he could decapitate a man, as he had done many previous times in his life of 15 years. Could withstand all but the most powerful attacks thrown at him. He was nearly undefeatable, and to bring his wrath down upon you was to invite Shinigami himself to join you. His name was Kimimaro Kaguya, the last remaining Kaguya of the once reviled clan, now in the servitude of one Orochimaru, the snake Sannin and traitor to Konoha. Kimimaro had led a tragic life. Son of the head of the Kaguya clan, he was thrust right into a world of war and death. As soon as he was able to walk, he was trained by his father how to fight. How to throw a punch. How to shatter an opponent's ribcage. How to kill. Kimimaro was much more gentler than his bloodthirsty clan and was looked down upon by many. In the Kaguya clan, gentleness was nothing but a weakness. Taught to show no mercy, if he disobeyed his father he would be beaten harshly and locked up. By the time he was 4 he had lost his innocence and his hands were already stained with blood as his father forced him to kill a helpless prisoner. The Kaguya clan was the backbone of Mist's army. Their elite forces, which many fled from, then faced such a foe. Of course the Kaguyas would often chase them down and slaughter them. Kimimaro's abilities eventually far exceeded his father's expectations, as he was turning him into the perfect warrior. By the time he was 8 he was already feared by his own kin, and he was locked in a special room by his mad father, who believed he would be killed by his own child. Only let out when they went to war. The only thing in his cell was a small flower, its beauty giving him comfort. He faintly remembered seeing other people who were in an alliance with the clan. One particularly a woman who was far too gentle in the Kaguya's eyes to be a warrior, yet she was the strongest of them. Her eyes, he reminded, soothed him, although his father looked down upon her as she preferred talk to battle. Then one day everything changed. Mist had betrayed the Kaguya clan and ordered their immediate execution, as the ruler had come to distrust all bloodline users, and that included the Shikatsumiyaku the clan possessed. Their allies had been wiped out as well or unable to do anything. The battle was a fierce one and he still had nightmares from it. All of Mist had gathered to fight them, it seemed like, and despite the thousands of bodies that piled the ground at the end of the day, the Kaguya clan had lost, and all of them, including his father, died at the hands of the Mizukage. Well, not all of them. Kimimaro had fled the battlefield shortly after it began and now lived on his own, unaware what he was going to do with his life now as he wandered the land alone. After a month had passed, he encountered Orochimaru, who told him to come with him, that he would give him a purpose. He had joined up with him, joining the man who had dreams of mastering all jutsu and conquering the world. Kimimaro was ready to do whatever it took to help his master achieve his goal. He would kill for him and die for him if that was what it took. Orochimaru had implanted a seal on him, the cursed seal of earth which was on his chest. He was going to use him to fulfill his dreams, to make him his next vessel so he could continue living. Kimimaro was willing to lay down his life for him. At least he was, until he had recently contacted a disease. The disease had damaged him and he did not know the effects of it. He believed he could fight it off eventually, but for now Orochimaru-sama's plans for him would have to wait. This infuriated him to no end, as he could not believe that a mere sickness would prevent him from fulfilling his goal. He was now considered obsolete and worthless until he was healed. He closed his eyes again when he suddenly heard a chattering noise. He opened his eyes and saw distastefully a small monkey with big eyes squealing in front of him. It had in its tail, he noticed, a scroll. He frowned at it as he hopped up and down trying to get his attention. In irritation, he went to pull out a sword and dispose of it when he noticed that it was mentioning for him to take the scroll. Frowning, not understanding what it was all about, he reached over and snagged it out of its tail. The annoying monkey disappeared in a puff of smoke. Checking it, he noticed that there was 2 seals on it. One was of the Hidden Leaf Village, which Orochimaru used to originate from. The next was a different way, and it looked like a symbol of importance. Breaking it open, he pulled the letter out and looked at it. Slowly his face changed from one of distaste to confusion to disbelief. It couldn't be. It was not possible. There was just no way. There was no way that it could be true. You are not alone, Kimimaro Kaguya. And Uzumaki, one of your kin, still lives and has activated his bloodline just now. If you wish to see him, come to Konoha immediately. Sarutobi Hiruzen, the Sandame of Konohagakure, the Hidden Village of Leaves. He did not know what to make of it. Could it be true? Could there be another? He wanted to go, but he knew that Orochimaru-sama would notice he was gone. But as he thought about it, he knew Orochimaru barely gave him any thought nowadays, and he rarely saw the man. He would hardly notice he was missing, and the others here in Otogakure didn't bother looking for him. It could be a fake, and it could be a trap, he knew that. But it was almost too good to pass up. He could discover that he wasn't alone, that it wasn't over. His eyes hardening, he put the seal in his robes and sped off immediately towards Konoha as fast as his feet and ill body would take him. Looking to discover the truths of the letter and see that it was true and he was not alone in this world. Naruto Uzumaki absent-mindedly stirred the bowl of ramen in front of him with his chopsticks, having barely taken a bite of his favorite meal. He stared blankly into it. Usually he was scarfing it down and calling for his 5th serving, but he wasn't hungry and didn't feel like eating. It had been 4 days ever since the incident. The sorting of genin graduates had been postponed due to the incident involving him and Mizuki, and the thoughts replayed in his mind over what had happened. Flashback. Damn you, you wretched brat, Mizuki shouted as he had been pinned down and beaten by the swarming clones that Naruto had made, having learned the Kage Bushin no Jutsu. Naruto glared at him as he had tricked him and threatened his and Iruka-san's life. We're bringing you in for questioning. Find out why you tried to steal the scroll of seals. Iruka told his former best friend. He looked at Naruto and nodded, telling him it was all right, and Naruto sent the hundreds of clones away. Iruka went to pull him up and bind him when Mizuki, in a last burst of strength, pushed him away, surprising Iruka. You son of a whore. Do you think anyone could ever love a demon spawn such as yourself? He shouted at Naruto in fury. That hit a nerve within him, and Naruto's eyes narrowed dangerously at what he said. What did you say? Naruto shouted as suddenly his normally blue eyes turned a murderous red, to Iruka's shock and Mizuki's horror as Naruto let out an angry roar. Suddenly 2 bones shot out of Naruto's shoulders, stunning both chunins. Naruto, if he had noticed, didn't care as he grabbed them and pulled them out of his skin, feeling no pain whatsoever as the bones turned into swords. Roaring, he charged forward, and before Mizuki could do a thing, Naruto had ran him through with the blades. Mizuki looked on, horror on his face, as Naruto had impaled him. "What kind of demon are you?" he said weakly, and fell backwards onto the ground, blood seeping from his abdomen. Naruto backed away and his eyes turned back to their normal blue color. He then had a stunned look on his face at what he had just done. "Naruto?" Iruka called out to him. "Are you?" "I didn't mean to," Naruto cried out and turned and ran. Iruka went to give pursue when he saw the Anbu team arrive, and two of them immediately turned to Mizuki, and he saw that despite the masks they wore, they were surprised at what they saw. "Tend to his wounds and get him to the hospital. We'll interrogate him later. You're sworn to secrecy," he ordered them, and went to give chase after Naruto. Naruto had immediately rushed to his home and locked the door, disbelief that he had done just a thing. Yeah, Mizuki's comment had ticked him off, but he hadn't wanted to kill him. He didn't understand what just happened and shuddered and reached towards his right shoulder as if expecting another bone to pop out. How was he able to do that? If it was a time thing or if there was something else to it. Hell, it probably was just a fluke what he did. That's how he seemed to get by nowadays, by the skin of his teeth. Taking a few more bites, he exited Ichiraku's bar and went to head home. Ayame watched him go and looked at her father. "I wonder what was up with Naruto." "I don't know," Tucci said and let out a groan. "But if he keeps this up, we're going to lose half our profits." On the outskirts of Konoha. "So this is the Leaf Village," Kimimaro Kaguya said as he overlooked it as he stood on the treetop scanning the village. In the distance he could see the mountain that had the carved figureheads of the past Hokages on it. It was different than what he had been expecting. In mist, the few times he had been to the Kirigakure village and his clan's home village, there was always a state of heightened alertness and preparation. Almost to the point of paranoia, as if something could break out at any moment and need to be put down with weapons. Rarely a day went by back then when a fight didn't broke out and another person lost his life as he was driven through, often at the hands of one of the 7 swordsmen or the Mizukage's other assassins he had had. Even in his own home there was rarely any lack of guards, as the Kaguya clan was always ready, always prepared to march out to war at a given notice. Looking out at the village and the few men they had on patrol nearly made him scoff in disbelief and roll his eyes. There should be dozens of men patrolling the gates at all time, weapons ready and eyes pointed outward, ready to see any oncoming threats. He looked on and saw that the east gate was watched on by only one man. An enemy force could charge right through it and sack this place in the blink of an eye. He shook his head and wondered if he made a mistake in coming here. Perhaps he had been deceived. "No matter, I'm on borrowed time as it is," he said to himself, and leapt down and started to make his way to the northern gate, which seemed the most heavily guarded. He could probably sneak in, what with the poor defenses they had. But he ran the risk of being caught, and the last he wanted was to deal with the trash they called ninjas, cause he would defend himself if necessary. Heavy by being only 5 or so men keeping watch, and as he looked, half of them were busy eating, or playing a game of some sort. He got within 50 feet of the gate when he saw the 2 who were on duty talking to one another. This caused him to roll his eyes again. If he had gotten within this distance in the past, he would have already been called out to halt, and he would have been aimed at with blowguns and arrows, which were often tipped with deadly poison such as wolf's bane or tree frogs from grass. He got within 30 feet and still the dumbasses didn't notice his approach and seemed more interested in arguing by the sound of it. If a person had got this close, he would have been surrounded by all sides. Clearly the Leaf had a different way of handling things. It was too peaceful for his taste. What with him being surrounded with war all his life, he didn't know how to drop his guard. "Azumo, I'm telling you it's my turn," one said, complaining to his counterpart. "You had the last turn and you know it, Kotetsu," the other argued as Kimimaro got closer. He didn't know what they was arguing about, and he frankly didn't give a damn. If the idiots didn't notice him as he got closer, he would just walk past them. "I'm saying it's my turn and you know it, you it, huh? Hey, who are you?" the first one said, finally spotting him as he got within 10 feet of them and finally noticed him. "State your business, foreigner," the other said, a bit nervous as he looked at him. Kimimaro looked at them disdainfully. They would have never lasted in the Kaguya clan or the Mist Academy. And to think these 2 were both Chunins. He questioned Konoha's policies as they seemed more concerned with arguing and eating than doing their duty. "State your business or leave," the second said a bit more loudly, trying to appear brave. Kimimaro, his expression never changing, reached towards his kimono and the two tensed as they thought he was reaching for a weapon. He almost smirked cause if he wanted to he could have already done so and left them lying at his feet with deep wounds. He pulled out the scroll he had gotten, he showed it and the seal to them. The two looked on in disbelief and he feared their eyes would pop out. The two stuttered and tried to pick themselves up as they were uncertain what to do. Finally, after a minute of talking amongst themselves, they made a decision. "All right, go in, but don't make any trouble, ya hear?" the first said, puffing out his chest, trying to act tough and intimidate him. Kimimaro knew and fought wolves more intimidating than the two fools. But he kept that to himself as he walked past them and into the village and heard the two start to bicker again, not bothering to give them a second thought. As he walked through the streets he kept to himself and noticed that there was more civilians than shinobi, and none of them carried a weapon on his or her person. He shook his head, wondering how this village was still standing as he made his way to the tower in the distance which he guessed was his destination. He then felt something brush up against his foot. He looked down and saw a cat that had ran into him. He looked down at it, disgust in his face, and sneered at it. The cat let out a meow and backed away fearfully, a scared look on its face. A voice called out to it and he saw the cat, rather than risk staying with him, turn and ran towards the group, which appeared to be genins by the look of them, and were surprised to catch it. Chasing after cats? That's what they did here. By the time he was a genin he was already killing high-ranked ninjas. And that was when he was only 6 years old. Those were 12-year-olds, ones who should have already seen battle and been professional trained killers. Not cat chasers. He made his way and the people of the village kept a respectful distance from him. That was good, as they knew he wasn't meant to be taken lightly. Some of the civilians had looks of fear, while others who were shinobi, even jonin ranked, had looks of respect at him, knowing he was a fully trained warrior and no doubt prowess. That was good, at least they recognized strength when they saw it. He could sense a couple strong areas of chakra. Perhaps this place wasn't the maggot's nest of weaklings he thought it to be. He let out a small cough as he passed by a boy wearing orange of all colors and didn't notice the looks of hate he had gotten. As he got closer to the Hokage's tower he sensed the eyes of many ninja on him. Enbu, no doubt, perched on the rooftops and across the street, and more were gathering near him as he got ever closer. He didn't come here for a fight and didn't want one, so he showed in his footsteps that he had no ill meaning or dark intentions. He reached the steps and made his way and forcefully opened the door and entered the tower. He was met with a look of surprise when he entered, as he was met with the confused looks of many ninja and kunoichi, not expecting an outsider to so boldly enter the Hokage's tower. He felt an urge coming on and he coughed for the next several seconds as all eyes were on him. He managed to stop himself before he could do any damage and looked at them all as they were on guard, ready to do anything should this stranger prove unfriendly. He made his way to the desk of the room. He ignored their looks and produced the scroll and showed it to the bewildered ninja. "Where is the Hokage's room?" he asked bluntly, his tone indicating he didn't want any delays. "Do you have a? I have received a letter from one Sarutobi Hiruzen to meet him. I don't have time to waste with you," he said to him, his eyes clearly telling him it was important. "Go down that hallway and up the stairs and take a left." "But the ninja started to saw when Kimimaro turned and made his way there. He soon came upon the door that his office was located at. He stared at the door and let out another series of coughs. Wondering if he should have just ignored the letter, he opened the door and entered the room. Inside, Sarutobi was just finishing the paperwork for today and ready to take a nice relaxing cup of green tea when his door opened. He frowned, figuring it was someone like Kakashi or one of the other jonins who never learned how to enter without knocking. Whoever it was must be strong with the chakra he was sensing. He looked up and ready to address the intruder. What he saw wasn't what he was suspecting. Instead of one of his jonins or men was a 15-year-old boy dressed in white and a purple bow around his waist, which reminded him of his prize's student's uniform he now wore. He had white hair and piercing green eyes. What was most noticeable was his 2 red dots on his forehead. The boy didn't say anything as Sarutobi stared at him and took a sip of his tea as he examined him. "Take a seat," he mentioned to him, pointing at the chair in the room. The boy reluctantly took a seat as he was on full guard, as if expecting a trap. "Can I offer you some refreshment?" Tea perhaps, it helps me after I've done my work? He said, picking up a jar that had it. I've come to find out if you know the truth about my kin. I don't have time to waste drinking tea. He responded sharply. No nonsense and to the point, Sarutobi thought as he studied him. He was 15, but he could sense that he had already seen many wars and battles than most of his ninja had. Very well, I know you Kimimaro Kaguya, and have been watching you for some time. You do have surviving kin. Your cousin Naruto Uzumaki, last of the Uzumaki clan. So one does exist, Kimimaro said quietly, and faintly a ghost of a smile showed for a brief second. You said he activated the Kekkei Genkai of Shikatsumiyaku that we possess. Is this true? He asked, as that was what had brought him here. Yes, he did it 4 days ago. Activating it for the first time, you two are the last of your respective clans. Sarutobi said to him. Soon only he will be left if things don't change, Kimimaro thought to himself, if his sickness didn't get better. Sarutobi pressed a button on his desk and he spoke into a radio device. Bring Naruto Uzumaki here at once, I have something to tell him. He said, and a voice responded. Before he gets here, I have something to tell you. Sarutobi mentioned to him. He may be your kin, but there is something else about him that you don't know. Kimimaro listened with full attention as Sarutobi began his tale. Grumbling to himself, Naruto made his way to the Hokage's office. The teams had been assigned earlier today and he got stuck with 2 people who didn't like him, and his sensei was lazy to boot. They had just barely passed the test he had given them and he wasn't in the mood to be lectured by the old man. After all that had happened, he wasn't in the mood. He knocked the door respectfully, as even though he was in a bad mood, the old man was still the closest thing he had to a grandfather who treated him well. He was told to come in and he did so. He saw the old man seated at his desk and he saw also another person in there he didn't recognize. Ah, Naruto-san. Good to see you came. Take a seat, Sarutobi said to him, smiling as always. Naruto allowed a smile to show and took the seat next to the other one, who studied him intently, as if he was examining him. What are you looking at? Naruto asked him, wondering what was up with him. Lift up your right sleeve, he ordered. Naruto looked at him confused. Show me your arm, he ordered in a bit of an angry tone. Naruto glared at him and looked at the Hokage, who nodded, telling him it was all right. Frowning, he reached towards his sleeve and rolled it up all the way. On his right arm near his elbow was 2 dots similar to the other boys but blue in color. They were a touchy subject for Naruto, as growing up he was mocked for them, as he had been born with them ever since he was a child. Some would taunt him for having them and call him a freak. The other boy nodded as if that was all he needed to see. The trademark of the Uzumaki clan. 2 blue dots, located on the right arm. You are one, and thus my kin. What? Naruto said, confused at what he just said. Naruto Uzumaki, this is Kimimaro Kaguya. Sarutobi said to him. Your cousin from the Kaguya clan. What? Naruto shouted loudly and Kimimaro flinched, his ears popping as the boy was in disbelief. Easy Naruto. Listen well, both of you. The Uzumaki and Kaguya clan were allies long ago, forged by an alliance, and each clan had the same bloodline. Shikatsumiyaku, the art of manipulating bones from the user's body to use as weapons. Sarutobi said, beginning his tale. The 2 clans were powerful back in the day. The Kaguya clan, which were the elite soldiers of Mist, and the Uzumaki clan, which founded and ruled the hidden village of Whirlpool. Each clan was powerful and feared throughout the land. Even the Uchiha clan here in Konoha kept an wary eye on them. You both are descended from the same warrior clans. You 2 are cousins from your mother's side, as it was common for the 2 to arrange marriages. Kimimaro, your mother was the sister of Naruto's mother. Kimimaro didn't say anything as a few images of the one person he loved flashed through his mind. The one person who was gentle with him and spared him from his brutal father's wrath. Mom, Naruto said to himself sadly, as he never knew about his mother. Kimimaro looked at him and remembered his mother talking with a red-headed woman that he had remembered. That was his aunt and Naruto's mother. The Kaguya and Uzumaki alliance was a powerful one, and many believed that one day they would eventually conquer the land. Their art of warfare, as the Uzumakis were master strategists and planners of battle, and the Kaguya's viciousness and love of battle made many armies tremble at the word of them. The Kaguya bloodline that many of the Uzumaki clan could also possess, though not all of them, as your mother didn't, as it was 1 in 5 for an Uzumaki to carry it in his blood and genes. It was at both of your great-grandfather's lives that the two clans reached the pinnacle of their might, and the Kaguya clan looked ready to take over Mist for themselves. You have much to live up to, Kimimaro said, as his father had told him many times the glory of their clan, which he had to live up to as he had been the heir of it. Sarutobi continued his tale to both of them. Eventually, though, the two clans lost their power. The Kaguya suffered heavy losses in the Second and Third War, and the Uzumaki clan was demolished and scattered during an assault on Whirlpool and mixture of a devastating tsunami which led to its destruction 13 years ago. At this time, the lone survivor of the clan came to Konoha and fell in love with and married a man and gave birth to you, Naruto. He said, purposely keeping the facts about his father hidden. Sadly, she died giving birth to you. Kimimaro looked at his cousin as Sarutobi had told him that he was the vessel for the Kyubi, the nine-tailed demon fox. This was surprising for Kimimaro, as he didn't expect that the young boy in front would house the most powerful of all the tailed beasts and would be his kin. A bit of wonderment was in him as he examined the boy. He certainly didn't look the part one would expect of having perhaps the most powerful being inside of him. He would have suspected the boy would have been Jonin by now if it was true, but here he was a lowly genin. And having the village's hatred directed solely at him, which made Kimimaro wonder why didn't he just kill a few of the useless worms so they'd learn to keep their mouths shut. But the Uzumakis did prefer talk to fists. The Kaguya clan too fell eventually. With the loss of many of its ninjas and warriors, it had only a quarter of its once greatness, but it was still dangerous. Fearing that they might regain their strength, the Mizukage, who had grown into an anti-bloodline paranoia at that time, ordered its immediate destruction 7 years ago. The battle that took place was perhaps the most bloodiest battle that took place in Mist's blood-filled history. And at the end of the day, the Kaguya clan except for you was no more. Sarutobi said and looked at Kimimaro. Kimimaro nodded. He had participated in that battle but had fled shortly after it began. Naruto, Kimimaro, you two are all that is left now. You both possess the bloodline of your kin and ancestors. Shikatsumiyaku, believed to be the greatest of all bloodlines, exceeding even the Sharingan and Byakugan of the Uchiha and Hyuga clans. My spy network located Kimimaro years ago, and I have been keeping an eye on him and you. Naruto looked at the Hokage and then back at his cousin, who stared back at him. The two cousins being the only thing each other had. I want to instruct the boy how to use it, Kimimaro said suddenly. He has just awakened it. There is much he has to learn. I will train him how to use it, he said, and suddenly a pair of bones popped out of his forearm and he pulled them out with little difficulty. Naruto's eyes widened at what he had just done. He was capable of doing that? He was just barely able to get them out of his shoulder. Very well, Sarutobi said to him, and Naruto looked at the old man, surprised at what he said. After he is done with his team, he shall train with you. Naruto, this is for the best. I know you may be reluctant to use it, but this bloodline shall help you. I shall assign a home for Kimimaro to stay at while he's here. However, I will be monitoring it, and if I see something that endangers him or if he is pressed into situations, we'll call it off. Naruto grunted his teeth and nodded his head, seeing he had little choice in the matter. Later outside. So why'd I have to learn this again? Naruto muttered as he stared at his cousin as the two were at the training grounds. So you can defend yourself. I can tell just by looking at you that our skills are at best garbage, he said, searching for the right word not to offend him. Naruto scoffed at him and turned around. Trash, he called out to him, and Naruto whirled around in anger. What did you call me? You heard me, trash. My name's Naruto. Naruto snapped angrily at him. Until you have proven yourself, I shall call you that. Prove you have some talent in you and I shall call you by your proper name. Why you? My father had a name for me as well. What was that? Naruto asked, not really caring. Scum, he replied with a hint of a smirk on his face. Naruto laughed dryly. Well, what if I don't want to learn this stupid thing anyway? Isn't using our bones like this cheating? Kimimaro scowled heavily at him and stepped forward. Listen well, trash, there is no rules in battle. All that matters is living at the end. In the Kaguya Code, rules are laid down by the ones who haven't been killed yet, and they are changed when the rule makers have been. You will learn how to use Shikatsumiyaku. That's a lousy code, Naruto replied dryly. First things we're doing is getting you new clothing, Kimimaro said. What's wrong with this? Orange is not a color a shinobi should wear, and I'll be damned if one of my kin wears it, he said to him. Keep this up and I'll kick your ass. Naruto shouted at him, getting mad. I'd like to see that, Kimimaro said, smirking at him. Naruto grinned. Hey, fine, let's fight. If you win I train under you, if I win I don't have to do the stupid stuff, deal? He asked, grinning confidently. Deal, Kimimaro said emotionlessly, wanting to get it over with. Hey, take this, Naruto said and performed hand symbols. Kage Bushin no Jutsu. He shouted and formed hundreds of clones like he did before. Kimimaro allowed a smile to show as he formed a blade as the hundreds leapt at him. 30 seconds later, Kimimaro carried the unconscious boy on his back walking through the streets. A part of him wondering if the boy was indeed his cousin with what had happened and that he had made a mistake in coming here. They had fought twice, and each fight had lasted 10 seconds. He had sliced his way through the clones easily and put his sword against Naruto's throat. The boy demanded a rematch and he granted him one. That fight went the same, only this time he delivered a hard knockout blow to his head, knocking his cousin unconscious. Shaking his head as he carried him, he didn't think Naruto would be that pathetic. One thing was certain of all this. They had a lot of work to do. Kimimaro stood overlooking the path that would lead him back to Konoha. He hadn't stayed in the Leaf Village despite the Hokage's offer to give him a small house to have as his own. It was too peaceful for his liking. The sound of children playing, birds chirping and the smell of food being cooked was nauseating to his senses. He had found a place not far to stay at and was now preparing to head back. The guards at the gate had been told of him, they wouldn't give him any trouble. As the Kaguya prepared to move, he wasn't surprised when he saw a burly man appear in the path in front of him. Going to Konoha? The man asked and flashed a smile which revealed several missing teeth. I'll be your guide to the village, good sir, he said and did a deep bow. Kimimaro looked on amused at him but sensed other presences. There was at least 3 of them, hidden not far from here he could detect by the faint sources of chakra. He recognized who the men were immediately and what their purpose was. Perhaps Konoha wasn't as peaceful as he thought it was. He could clearly detect a group of men and one armed with a long bow hidden between a group of rocks. How much Ryo you offer? The missing teeth man said to him, getting his attention. The Kaguya didn't respond as he stared at the man with a bored expression on his face. Ya deaf? The man asked. You pay, or we take the money from your skinny corpse, he said and reached towards the side of his traveling cloak and revealed a short sword. His buddies except for the bowman stepped forward as well, revealing their own weapons, and they walked forward, confidence in their steps as they surrounded him who hadn't made any moves. Despite the confidence they had in their footsteps, he knew they were nervous, the brigands were. He could read their movements the same way a scholar did a book. Already he could tell their next course of action and which side they would come from. The archer, he noted, was hesitant. This is your last warning, the man said, drawing out his sword. Kimimaro still didn't say anything. He slightly moved his foot forward and hooked it under a nearby rock, which went unnoticed by them as he looked at them all with a bored expression on his face, when in truth he was tightening his honed muscles and preparing to make the move. Inside his mind he let out a mental sigh, thinking it all folly. We gave you a chance. Seize him. The other 2 started to advance on him from the side when he leapt up, kicking the rock towards the first brigand and outstretching his legs kicked both while he was in midair. One he hit in the face while the other he hit in the chest. He grabbed the one on the right and held him in front of him to use as a shield from the archer. He needn't have bothered, as the archer missed and badly. Dropping the shield, he saw the burly man charge him, roaring his sword overhead. Kimimaro dodged the man's wild swings, and when the man went to stab him, leapt over the man into a somersault and landed behind him. He grabbed the man's arm and twisted it, causing him to curse in pain. Twisting the arm and guiding it, he used the brigand's own weapon to block a swipe from one of the others and punched him away. The archer of the group fired again and missed, not even coming close to Kimimaro. Idiot, he muttered under his breath. He, still holding the man's arm, twisted it again, hearing a popping and snapping sound, and flipped the man onto his back. He then raised his foot up and brought it down hard across the squirming man's throat, crushing it. The sword he had flew up into the air from the impact, and he caught it without missing a beat. Instinct told him danger was afoot, and he dodged a stab from behind by a brigand who used a spear. The man jabbed and stabbed at him, and Kimimaro lazily blocked and parried with the sword he had pilfered. Clearly none of them here were any good at fighting. Tiring of this, he dropped the sword and pulled out of his arms 2 medium-sized blades. He went on the offensive and the brigand could not keep up as he drove him back. He cut through the spearhead and then stabbed the man in the ribcage, hearing him gasp his last when he felt it enter a lung and pulled it out. Then, without missing a beat, not bothering to look, he raised his hand up and fired his fingernails at the other brigand, the sharpened objects piercing through his throat and dropping him as well. He looked at the 3 dead bodies and knew the archer was still out there, but apparently the would-be thief had given up as he saw him throw his bow to the ground and sprinting from his hiding spot, retreating. Trying to run as fast as his feet would take him. He could easily chase him down, he could even get the bow and fire an arrow into his back, but Kimimaro saw no point in it. Not even bothering to check them for any money or items, he continued on his path towards the Leaf Village. At the training grounds, Naruto Uzumaki grumbled as he looked down at the new outfit he was wearing. After having got his ass kicked by his cousin the day before, the first thing they had done after he regained consciousness was to buy and get Naruto some new ninja clothes. Gone was the orange and blue outfit, in place was an outfit similar to Kimimaro's but in a different style and color. Naruto had gone with an white and blue styled outfit instead of the all-white that Kimimaro had worn. His upper body was covered by the blue shirt, which didn't expose his chest like Kimimaro's did, and it had long sleeves as well which could conceal kunai and shuriken, and he wore white pants with a sash as well as his sandals. He looked over at his teammates and had noticed the looks they had given him after seeing him show up in the new outfit. The darn things had cost him a lot of money, and he had heard some of the villagers making snide remarks as he walked earlier, wondering how he was able to afford clothes. "Ah, good day everyone. Nice outfit, Naruto," their sensei said as he had finally arrived. Naruto looked over at his sensei Hitaki Kakashi, who was late as always, and his teammates Sakura Haruno and Sasuke Uchiha. Each had placed at the top of the class respectively, whilst he had been at the very bottom and had been paired up with them. They already didn't like him, he could tell, as Sakura, the long pink-haired girl, had complained about him, wondering why she and Sasuke couldn't be a team by themselves. She was more concerned with her makeup and how she looked than training. While Sasuke was only concerned with himself and getting stronger and often called him Dobi. He let out a sigh and wondered how this was going to work out. No one in the village liked him. Some hated him, and his cousin, wherever he was, had given him the nickname of Trash ever since they had met and would be training him how to harness his bloodline that he possessed. "What is that?" Sakura asked, suddenly looking at him, and he noticed she was staring at the 2 blue dots on his right arm that he had when he had rolled up his sleeve. "Is that some sort of disease or something?" she asked rather rudely to him. "It's nothing, it's just a birthmark," he said to her defensively, and she turned and left and went back to fawning over her Sasuke. Naruto, looking on, would give up ramen for life if he got that sort of attention on a daily basis. "Well then, we shall begin by," Kakashi started to say when he sensed a presence. He turned his head and looked in the eastern direction, and the 3 genins did as well. "He's here already?" Naruto muttered as he saw Kimimaro walking towards them, his expression blank. "I'm afraid you're going to have to leave, stranger," Kakashi said to him. "This is Team 7's training area for today and you'll have to go." "I'm here for the boy," Kimimaro responded and pointed at Naruto. "I'm taking him off your hands. It doesn't appear you are going to do anything today anyway," he said in a rather rude tone of voice. "I appreciate your offer, but a sensei can't teach if he doesn't have his students," Kakashi said to him. "I'm under orders by the Hokage himself to train Tra Naruto," he said, starting to call him by his nickname. "Seeing how he's not doing anything with you, it'd be better if he does." "Why does the Dobi have special training?" Sasuke asked, wondering why he was getting extra training. "Weak garbage like you wouldn't understand," Kimimaro said to him. "What did you say?" Sasuke shouted in anger at what he just said to him. "You can't talk to Sasuke-kun that way," Sakura shrieked at him, but Kimimaro seemed unconcerned. "Come on, Trash, let's go. I don't have all day," he said to Naruto, who grumbled and went with him, leaving Team 7 behind. "Your sensei and your comrades are pathetic," Kimimaro said to him as they walked. "You keep calling people names and you'll tick them off and find a kunai in your back," Naruto responded as they walked. "Many have tried, all have wound up dead," Kimimaro said with a smirk when he stopped and began coughing, suddenly surprising Naruto. Kimimaro's body was shaking as he coughed and hacked, and Naruto looked on at his cousin's unexpected outburst as he covered his mouth with his hand. After a few tense moments, Kimimaro managed to regain control and wiped his hand from his mouth, and Naruto thought he saw blood on his hand. "You okay?" He asked, wondering what just happened. Damn illness, Kimimaro thought to himself. I'm fine trash, he answered, and Naruto either ignored it or didn't hear him as he looked on. We'll begin by learning how to walk on water. Water walking? Naruto said and looked confused. Isn't that kinda advanced? He said as he wasn't expecting that. Kimimaro rolled his eyes. Just how did they teach here? Water walking is an basic technique for the wielders of Shikatsumiaku to learn. Our Kekkei Genkai is both a blessing and a curse. It allows our bodies to become weapons, yes, but at the same time our bones become much heavier and denser. Surely you have noticed it in that thick skull of yours. Naruto glared at him but didn't respond. He did feel heavier, he had noticed lately. As if he was wearing extra weights or something. As if his body on the inside was becoming harder. He didn't look it, but he felt a lot heavier ever since the incident with Mizuki. Thankfully none of that had been transferred to the outside, or else he'd be a dead ringer for Choji. Many have died by drowning due to being overweighed by their bones and sink to their deaths when knocked into water. Both our clans mastered water walking at a young age so we can stay afloat in the water and save ourselves. I thought at least you'd know that by now. This requires chakra control. Surely your father at least taught you about that? I never knew my father. Naruto responded, much to Kimimaro's surprise, and saw him drop his head. My point is that Shikatsumiaku is not something any fool can learn overnight, and neither is chakra control. You must be determined to master it. Before I even teach you how to harness your bones as weapons like I can do, we will work on chakra control. Naruto nodded and noticed they had stopped by a stream of water. Kimimaro then shoved him unexpectedly, and Naruto lost his footing and fell down into the water with a splash. The water wasn't deep, only up to his knees. Standing up, and he came up spitting water out of his mouth and cursing. You bastard, what the hell did you do that for, you damn asshole? He shouted at him, who looked down at him amused. This will be a good place to start as any. You can start here and it isn't deep, so I won't have to worry about you drowning yourself when you fall through. He said to him, and Naruto continued to curse at him, and the boy's anger and words he shouted at him reminded Kimimaro of the female flute player back at Otto. Every day when you're done with your team you'll start training with me from noon to 7. Now get up out of there and we'll begin your exercises on water walking. He ordered. Naruto climbed out of the water and rejoined him up there, grumbling all the while. Later, he shouted in frustration as his feet fell through the water for the 10th time and sunk to his knees. Cursing to himself, he kicked the water angrily. Stop polluting the water, you demon brat. A man who was walking by shouted at him, and Naruto glared at him. He was soaking wet as he couldn't handle it for more than a few seconds as his chakra control was bad. It was hard what he was trying to do, and becoming a big pain in the ass as well. He managed to get both feet on it but couldn't handle it and eventually fell through again. He lost track after the 10th time. Continue. Focus your chakra on your feet and keep your mind open on the task, trash. Kimimaro said, walking past him on the water without a problem, as if to mock him, as they had been there for hours. It was now in the afternoon. He was lucky looks couldn't kill with the look Naruto was giving him. Every now and then a person would walk by, and seeing them would often shout at them, well, most often at Naruto, calling him a demon. Naruto ignored them as he tried to focus. If you killed a few of the maggots, trash, I doubt they would keep calling you names. Kimimaro said as he would often respond to an insult with a sword. Yeah, right, and become even more of an outcast? Naruto mumbled sarcastically. Kimimaro shook his head as he stood on the water looking at him. Naruto's chakra control was pathetic. It would take weeks at this rate for him to even stand on his feet with the way they was going. Find a goal. Use that as inspiration if you need to. Use that to focus your mind when you do it, he said, trying to find some way for his cousin to do it. Naruto looked at him and got ready to do it. He pressed one foot into the water and closed his eyes and imagined his dream. To be accepted, he could see it now. An older version of him dressed in the Hokage's robes as he had fulfilled his goal. The thousands of people cheering and chanting his name. Kakashi looking at him with pride at his greatest student. Iruka smiling at him as he had achieved his dream. Tucci and his daughter offering him all the ramen he wanted. All the people who had doubted and mocked him before cheering him and praising the new Hokage. Sakura, Ino, and the other girls fawning over him. Sasuke, nah. Sasuke wasn't there. There was no place for him in his imagination that he had. The people of Konoha bowing as one in honor of him. Sarutobi telling him how proud he was of him. And lastly visualizing his face carved into the mountain next to the past Hokages. He opened his eyes and looked down and saw that he had both feet in the water and he hadn't fallen through. He was standing on it successfully for the first time. A smile formed on his face and he took a few steps and stayed above it. Grinning, he started to run. Hey, I'm doing it, I'm, splash. So excited that he was on there he lost focus and fell through again. He came up on all fours spitting water out of his mouth and his hair soaking wet. He saw a pair of feet and looked up at Kimimaro who had his arms folded across his chest. Before you run trash you must learn how to walk. That's enough for now, he said and leapt up out of the water. I'll see you tomorrow, he said and walked away. Naruto growled and slapped the water in anger. He'd show them all. The next few days went by pretty fast for Naruto. He'd get up, eat breakfast and go work with Team 7 and do some D-rank missions such as helping paint fences or God forbid, chase after the cat that belonged to the daimyo's wife. And after that he'd go to Ichiraku's and eat his usual servings of ramen, the two glad to see him back to his normal self. When it was noon he went with Kimimaro and the two resumed where they left off previously. Although Kimimaro was a bit of a psychopath in his eyes and always called him that nickname he hated, Naruto realized he was learning more under him in one day than he was with his teammates and their sensei. It did please him that he was getting actual attention and teaching even if he was being called trash and other names instead of being overlooked. He was finally getting the hang of water walking and control of his chakra after a while, and Kimimaro began training him in taijutsu, the two sparring in hand-to-hand fights. Naruto had yet to land a real blow on him, but he could sense he was getting better. The fight ended with Kimimaro the victor, but he was strengthening Naruto's blows and speed as well. Kakashi, having seen him after a few days passed, also noted that Naruto was showing signs of improvement. As he walked across the water without falling once, he felt like patting himself on the back, pleased with himself. How many genins knew how to and were capable of water walking this early? Oi, Kimimaro-san, I think I got this down pretty well, he called out to the other who was seated against a tree watching him. The Kaguya raised himself up as Naruto got out of the stream. Your chakra control and water walking is substandard, but I guess that's good enough for now at least. Now follow me, he said to him, and Naruto followed after his cousin. You need to loosen up, you know that? Find yourself a nice girl or something. You make one of my classmates Shino look like that crazy kid with the big brows with how stoic you are. Naruto called out to him as Kimimaro rarely showed any emotion other than quiet anger or annoyance at him. The two came to a training ground that was empty and stopped. Now we'll finally begin the process of using Shikatsumyaku, he said to him, who nodded. Shikatsumyaku, our bloodline, enables us to do things beyond the norm of normal people. With this we can use our bones as weapons and endure all but the strongest of attacks. Only a Kaguya and Uzumaki can use it, as it cannot be copied, he said, and to make an example pulled one out of his body. Naruto nodded again and spoke up. How do we use it? Also, wouldn't we injure ourselves by pulling them out and basically turn our bodies to jelly with taking them out? Kimimaro rolled his eyes at his cluelessness. Shikatsumyaku is self-regenerating trash, meaning that it heals itself and grows another. Whenever we pull one out, another grows in its place. Any body part, ever our fingernails, can be used as a projectile weapon if we put our mind to it, he said, and to demonstrate aimed at a target dummy and fired 5 nails from his fingers which penetrated it, and Naruto saw them grow right back on his hand. Any bone part can be used, some can even be used for picking locks such as the small ones in our wrist and hands. Shikatsumyaku's limits is only that of its wielder. With your daydreaming I suppose you could make plenty if you put your mind to it, he said, going into detail about it. Naruto wasn't sure if that last bit was a compliment or an insult. The way he talked about it, Shikatsumyaku was the greatest thing in the world and above everything else. He didn't have much experience with bloodline users except for occasionally the Hyuga clan. They were often pretty arrogant except for the heiress, and Sasuke himself was pretty cocky as well, being descended from the Uchiha clan. It seemed, looking at his only family, that the Kaguya clan often considered themselves superior to others as well. It is important that you focus when using it, as an unfocused mind can lead to you damaging or possibly killing yourself when you use it. When you activated it, you've noticed a searing pain, didn't you? Naruto remembered the feeling that his shoulders were inflamed when he had first done it. No one else knew that he would be practicing his Kekkei Genkai. Mostly everyone thought that he was just getting a special trainer and sensei to help him train since he was at the bottom. Except for Iruka and the old man, no one even knew he had a bloodline, and given his past treatment he would be looked down even more if they saw him doing this. Like walking on water, it is important to focus and have keen chakra control when you do it, trash, or else you risk harming yourself. Kimimaro said to him, "The body heals itself and regrows the bone you draw out, and you have the Kyuubi's regeneration as well, so you should suffer little damage when you try it." He then rolled up his sleeve and revealed his arm up to his elbow. He then reached towards it and grabbing the skin pulled out a 3-foot-long bone which sharpened and became a sword with little effort. "Now then do as I did. We call the art of pulling them out Heijin drawing. Drawing blades from ourselves, show me that you can do it. When you feel you got it, begin pushing it out. I'll warn you, it will burn," he ordered Naruto, who looked at him a bit unsure. He rolled up his sleeve as well of his left arm and looked at the body part. Focusing on it, he reached forward and grabbed it. Focusing on his chakra, he felt it starting to do something. As if something was beginning to stick out of his arm, he reached at his elbow and grabbed it and felt something hardening in his arm and becoming sharper. He saw to his shock a white marrow-like object starting to stick out ever so slowly. Grasping it, he began pulling it out. It felt like his elbow had been caught on fire with the searing pain he started to feel, but he gritted his teeth and ignored it and continued doing so. Grabbing it, he pulled out the foot-long blade and let out a cry as he pulled it out fully and held it in his hand. "Damn, that stung," he said and shook his arm, trying to get the flaming pain to go away. He looked at Kimimaro and held out the bone blade. "Well, what do you think? HMPH, you need to be faster. One should be able to pull one out in less than a second. Also, it needs to be longer as well, that's only the length of a tanto. Basically used for suicide by dishonored samurai. You need at least 2.5 feet to have a good blade. At least you managed to make it look sturdy and it looks sharp," he said to him as he examined it. "Now then, slide it back into your arm and it will go back in place." Naruto placed it back against his elbow and he saw it go back into his skin. "Whoa, that's freaky," he said, and then got an idea. "Hey, since I'm going to be using swords and stuff, does that mean I'll be learning kenjutsu?" he asked. "You still have a long way to go, trash, but maybe if you show some decent ability," Kimimaro said to him. "Now then, do the same thing, only this time pull out 50 of them." 50. Naruto shouted at him that he'd have to do that many. 55. "Now begin," he answered back. "Why you?" Naruto muttered at him and began. The process took him over half an hour to do that many, but eventually Naruto managed to get the hang of it, and the throbbing pain in his arms when he pulled out the bone started to numb and go away as his body was becoming used to it. The time it was taking him to pull one out was shortening as well, and he was making them longer as he focused his chakra and energy. Finally, he had made a large pile of bones, each over 2 feet long, and pulled the last one out of his arm. Smirking and pleased with himself, he saw Kimimaro meditating nearby. "Hey," he shouted, interrupting his meditation. "I got them all," he said and pointed to the pile. Kimimaro stood up and after coughing for a second walked over and examined them. "HMPH, this is somewhat better, at least you've gotten the hang of making them longer," he said as he studied them with a critical eye. "It's hard to impress you, isn't it?" Naruto asked. "So when do I get to learn how to fight with them and do those jutsus?" "Just wait, trash," he responded and pulled one of his own out. He took it in front of him and brought a hand up and made hand symbols with it. The bone suddenly became surrounded by a blue glowing light. This is called Heijin barrier. When the Kaguyas spars with another Shikatsumiyaku user, they would use this on the weapon they chose to fight with so they wouldn't risk damaging their training partner. AD class jutsu. Can I learn that? Naruto asked, looking at it with interest. Focusing, he pulled out a 2.5-foot-long blade and brought it before him. Remembering how he did it, he brought his other hand up and made hand symbols. Heijin barrier, he said, finishing it. He looked at it and nothing happened at first, and he let out a sigh thinking he'd messed up again, but then a faint red light appeared around the blade and he touched it and felt it covered as if it was in a sheath. "Haha, I did it," he said, beaming with joy. "Don't get overconfident, trash," Kimimaro said, but Naruto ignored him. "Even novices can pull that off. Other ninjas that use bladed weapons can pull that off as well." "Whatever, when do we start sparring?" Naruto asked him, smiling. Kimimaro twirled his blade and looked at him, not saying anything. Naruto realized what this meant and taking a couple practice swings got into a stance. Kimimaro rushed him and Naruto barely got his blade up in time to block it. Kimimaro followed it up with a series of slashes and stabs aimed at him and Naruto was on the defensive, barely able to dodge and block the cuts and slices at him. Although they were sparring, he could tell Kimimaro was serious about this. Naruto avoided a swipe at his stomach and countered with a stab of his own, which was blocked easily. Kimimaro thrust his sword at his ribcage and Naruto narrowly missed it. The boy was outclassed by his cousin and soon Kimimaro had disarmed him of his weapon and had his weapon aimed at his heart. "Oh okay, I think it's clear you won," Naruto said, sweat pouring down his face as Kimimaro withdrew the sword. "You need to get better. If this was serious I could kill you in a second," Kimimaro said to him. "We'll continue where we left off tomorrow after you're done with your team," he said and turned and walked away leaving him. Naruto watched him go, knowing he'd have to get better if he was going to earn his approval and fulfill his dream as well. Sarutobi Hiruzen watched on through his crystal ball at the two figures sparring against one another. He had been watching them for quite some time, ever since they had started. The Sandame looked on as he watched them. He had been doing so for the past couple of days to see how it was coming along and if the younger boy was in any danger. He'd been watching Naruto and Kimimaro ever since they had begun to see how they were doing. It had been a week since Kimimaro had arrived and the two cousins learned about one another. Since that time Naruto had been working with both him and Team 7. Naruto, he could easily tell, was showing vast signs of improvement. Despite the struggle at first, he was taking to it as he had learned water walking and tree walking ever since he started, as well as using his bloodline and Shikatsumiku. The council didn't know that he had it, no one did. It'd be good if they did not know for now. Particularly Danzo, his one-time rival for position of Hokage. If they knew he had such a bloodline, they would demand that he be brought forward and examined the Kekkei Genkai. At the worst, he could be locked up and deemed a threat to all around. He looked on as he saw them. It was easy for the Kaguya. Fighting was a natural part of his clan as they enjoyed battle. It was in his blood, as the Kaguya clan was a warlike clan and near-perfect soldiers. However, that had also led to their downfall as well, with the losses they sustained in battles, as the clan nearly died as much as they breed. He had tried, years ago, to get the Kaguya clan to convert to the Leaf Village. To make allies with them, as they had lost much power and many of their allies were gone. But the clan had refused his offer, refusing to give up their warlike lifestyle. Even with the promises of treaties and alliances, did little to persuade them, as the Kaguya, like the Uchihas, was a pride clan and refused the aid of another as they viewed weakness like a disease. Still, Sarutobi tried to get them to join them as they were diminishing over the years. If they had joined them, then perhaps they would still be alive after what had happened 7 years ago. With their destruction at the hands of the Mizukage and Mist, he had sent his scouts out to look for any survivors and none could be found. Except for Kimimaro, the boy had disappeared, and despite his attempts to find him, had vanished from the world. It was just now, only a year ago, that he discovered him in the base of Orochimaru, his former student who had made his new headquarters in the land of rice. Truth be told, he didn't expect him to show up after he had sent his letter to him. It was a fool's hope, but it had paid off. Neither had known about the other, as the Uzumaki were destroyed along with Whirlpool 13 years ago, with Naruto's mother the only survivor. By that time the Uzumaki and their once greatness had fallen into history barely remembered. The Kaguya clan suffered the same fate as well. Sarutobi continued to watch on, to see how the last of the two clans would hold against each other. "Quicker, quicker I say," Kimimaro shouted at Naruto as he threw sharp bone-like weapons at Naruto from his ribcage and stomach at a fast pace. Naruto brought his sword up and deflected them, blocking the weapons thrown at him and preventing them from hitting him. Kimimaro threw a near-endless supply of the spike-like weapons and Naruto was barely able to avoid and block them. Naruto, knowing he couldn't stay on the defensive, avoided one and charged him. Kimimaro threw more at him and Naruto responded by ducking and going into a roll, covering up any vital areas and them flying overhead. He slashed at Kimimaro, who ducked and kicked at him, sending him backwards. Naruto reached into his shoulder and focusing pulled out another 2-foot-long blade. He then brought the blades together at the hilt and combined them into one long double-bladed sword. Kimimaro, looking on, nodded in approval at what he just did, using his chakra to combine the two into a 5-foot-long blade that he gave a few twirls with. Naruto charged him, spinning his weapon, and Kimimaro pulled out his own bone blades and countered his assault, blocking them with his own. Naruto planted his blade into the ground and using it as leverage went to leap and kick him. Kimimaro evaded his attack and hit him in the face with an open palm thrust to stun him. Naruto backed up a bit and Kimimaro went to slice his head off. Naruto ducked under and dashed past him but didn't swing at him as he had his back to him. Kimimaro turned around and suddenly Naruto leapt up and delivered a backflip kick connecting with Kimimaro's head. The unexpected move caught Kimimaro off guard and Naruto grinned as he landed, as it was the first time he had actually managed to hit him ever since they started training. Naruto went to stab him when a pair of bones sprouted out of Kimimaro's back and blocked it. Kimimaro whipped around and pulled out of his knee a larger, more sturdy bone than the previous ones he had done before. Taking the heavy bone in his hands, he swung it like a club and Naruto dodged it just in time. Kimimaro swung again and Naruto went to block it and nearly felt his arms go numb by the force of it. Naruto twirled his combined blades in front of him, trying to drive him back. Kimimaro swung at him and Naruto pulled them apart back into two blades as he backed away. He slashed at him and Kimimaro swung as well and Naruto's swords shattered upon contact, broken by his club. Before Naruto could pull out another, he was met with a hard blow to his stomach, knocking him down. He hit the ground with a thud and groaned. The weapon may have had a barrier on it, but that didn't hurt when he got hit. HMPH, you're improving, trash, Kimimaro said and slipped it back into his knee. I managed to hit you, Naruto said, sitting up. A lucky shot, he responded. We're done for today. You need to improve your style and balance. Your style is too sluggish and more suited of a mindless brawler. Shikatsumiku is a mixture of both dance and battle. Both beautiful and deadly. See you tomorrow? No, he said surprisingly. I have things I have to do tomorrow. I'll see you again in 2 days. I expect you to train by yourself in my absence, he said and walked away, and Naruto watched him go, used to his cool demeanor and stoic form. He rarely, if ever, showed any other emotion except irritation at times. But on the plus side, whenever he called him trash, he wasn't saying in an insulting way anymore. Almost as if he was pleased with his results of their training. Naruto then decided to head home. The next day he was at the training grounds with his teammates and he was busy stretching, waiting to see what they would do today when their lazy sensei showed up. Come on, Sasuke-kun, let's go on a date after training today, Sakura said to the lone Uchiha who was by himself. No, go away, I'm busy. Please, Sasuke-kun, I know you'll have a good time, Sakura said, smiling, thinking she could get him. Naruto rolled his eyes, having seen it for the 100th time. Sakura and many of the other girls were oblivious to the fact that Sasuke didn't want anything to do with them. He didn't want to go on a date. Will you stop being annoying? He snapped at her. Isn't it rude to yell at ladies, Sasuke? Naruto asked as he continued his stretches and then started doing squats. Sakura glared at him and looked back at Sasuke. Why do you know about manners, Baka? Leave Sasuke-kun alone, she snapped at him as he did his squats. Naruto shook his head, used to the treatment. He then saw Sasuke approach him. Spar with me, Sasuke said, although it sounded more like an order. Give me something to do before sensei arrives. TCH, fine. Naruto responded and stopped his squats and got into a fighting stance that Kimimaro had showed him. Sasuke got into one and suddenly dashed towards him in a burst of speed, aiming to hit him in the head. Naruto was ready and blocked it, surprising Sasuke with how he reacted and how he blocked it with no damage. Like he had read what he was going to do. He then threw a kick which Naruto dodged as well, showing good speed. Sasuke glared at him and did hand symbols and fired a fireball at him. Naruto saw it coming and moved out of the way, missing it. So jutsus are allowed, eh? Fine then. Kage Bushin no Jutsu. Naruto shouted and formed 10 clones which swarmed around Sasuke. They charged him and he activated the Kawarami Jutsu, disappearing in place of a log. Multi-Fireball Jutsu. Sasuke shouted, reappearing and doing more hand symbols, fired a group of fireballs that hit the clones and dispelled them. Still trying the same tricks, Dobi? Sasuke said to him, smirking. I've learned a couple new tricks since we started, Naruto answered back as the two continued, and Sakura was cheering Sasuke on, being his cheerleader. Sasuke went to attack him, but Naruto dodged it and displayed a surprising burst of speed, and getting behind Sasuke, kneed him in the back. What? Sasuke shouted, getting himself back up. How did Naruto do that so quickly? He went to attack him when Naruto leapt backwards and near the nearby tree. He then started running up it, surprising Sasuke again that he was able to walk on trees. How was he able to do that? He was never told or taught about tree walking by Kakashi. How's he doing that? That's cheating. Sakura cried out, confused as well, when Naruto leapt from the trees and threw several kunai and shuriken at Sasuke, who covered himself up and was hit by cuts from them. Naruto landed and charged Sasuke and nailed him in the stomach with a hard punch, knocking the wind out of him. Sasuke recovered quickly though and threw a fast punch at Naruto. Naruto quickly pressed himself for impact as it collided with his face. To his surprise, he didn't feel as much pain as he thought he would and heard Sasuke cry out suddenly and withdraw his hand and clutched his hand. Sasuke shook his injured hand, a look of disbelief on his face at what happened. The blonde's face felt like he had just punched a brick wall. Punching him did more damage to himself and felt like he may have broken a couple of knuckles. Naruto was confused as well until he thought of something. That's right, my hardened skeleton. It must also include my face as well, so that means I'm armored pretty much everywhere. He thought to himself, remembering what Kimimaro told him and how much heavier his bones felt. He went to go on the offensive when a blur appeared in front of them path and Kakashi appeared. I guess I should start getting here earlier, he said in between them. I see you're keeping busy at least. He mentioned to them. Sasuke-kun, are you alright? Sakura asked, running forward to check. Your hand's bruised. What did you do to him, Naruto? She shouted at him. I didn't do anything, he's the one who hit me. He answered back as she was taking his side again. If the rest had heard about this, that he had damaged the Uchiha, he would be mobbed by them within minutes. Sensei Sasuke-kun's injured. He should go to the hospital and get that checked out, Sakura complained, the tone of her voice making it sound like he had a broken neck. He'll be fine, Sakura, Kakashi said, waving her concern away. That'll heal easily enough on its own with no trouble. I suppose we should begin right now. Naruto, looking on, rolled his eyes, seeing how Sasuke got all the attention as usual. Sensei, I want to learn how to walk on trees, Sasuke said, suddenly getting his attention. Kakashi looked a bit surprised at his request. Tree walking? That's a bit ahead of you for now, Sasuke. You still have much to learn about chakra control before you can do that. But he can do it, Sasuke protested and pointed at Naruto. He's capable of walking on trees. Why can't I learn that now? He demanded, upset that Naruto could do something he couldn't. Is that true, Naruto? Kakashi asked, turning to look at him. Yeah, responded Naruto. Kimimaro taught me chakra control this week while I was with him. He taught me how to walk on tree and water surfaces while I was with him. He said to them. I'm impressed. I guess Sarutobi chose well in picking an outsider to train you, and him only a few years older than you. He said. In truth, he had sensed that Naruto had been getting better as of late when he saw him every morning. This Kimimaro person must be quite the teacher. Where is he? Sasuke asked Naruto, surprising him. Where is your other sensei? Why? I want to learn under him. He can teach me how to be stronger. Sasuke said, clutching a head into a fist. I don't know where he went. He said he'd be gone for a few days. Besides, he's my trainer. He's helping me, not you. Naruto said, a bit upset that he would demand him to take him to him. If he can teach you of all people how to walk on water and trees, Dobi, then he must be exceptional. He can train me and make me become stronger. Where did he go? Sasuke said to him in a pressing manner. I told you I don't know, he's my sensei. You're the top genin, you don't need any extra training. Naruto said to him, getting mad that he demanded him that he make his cousin train him. Naruto, stop being rude. Can't you see it's important that Sasuke-kun gets stronger? Sakura yelled at him. Kimimaro-san won't even bother training you anyway. At best you'd be lucky if he gives you a glance. He won't train you, even if you are an Uchiha. Naruto said, knowing how his cousin was and didn't really care for who a person was. Why you? Sasuke started to say, and Kakashi stepped forward. Alright, that's enough, both of you. This Kimimaro is under the orders of the Hokage himself to only train Naruto. If he allows it, maybe he can train you as well, Sasuke. Kakashi said, being the negotiator between the two. Naruto frowned at him, not liking it one bit. He finally had something to give him an edge and help him improve, and now Sasuke was wanting it for himself. Wasn't he pretty much praised by everyone for being the prodigy and getting the highest marks in the academy, with all the others calling him a future legend? Why'd he have try and steal his thunder now that he's finally getting somewhere with becoming a ninja? It wasn't fair in his eyes that Sasuke could get whatever he wanted. Now that's that settled, let's begin. Elsewhere? Where could he be? A voice said in a building. The voice belonged to a blue-haired figure with green lips, and he walked with 3 other people. He's been gone for weeks. Orochimaru-sama will be pissed if he finds out he's gone, the angry individual said as the group walked. Hell if I know, you know how he is. The second, a figure who had a set of 6 arms, said. Well, it's not like he was doing anything here, besides order us around. The third, a large figure with orange hair, said. Yeah, let him get lost. The first one mumbled, and you could see another body with him as the others agreed. You damn dumbasses. The female of the group with red hair shouted at them. If something happens to Kimimaro, who do you think Orochimaru-sama is going to put the blame on? Once he finds out he's gone, he'll skin us alive. She snapped at them. The group was known as the Sound Four and were Orochimaru's personal bodyguards. When Kimimaro was with them, they were known as the Sound Five, and they were currently wondering where he had gone as they walked through the building which served as one of his bases in Oto. Geez, since we did you care about Kimimaro Tayuya? Sakin, the leader of the group, said to her. I don't, but I care about living to see the next day, stupid. She responded angrily. He may be sick, but that doesn't mean Orochimaru-sama considers him useless. If he finds out he's gone and we haven't found him, who do you think he'll blame and punish? She shouted at them. The others didn't have to answer. They already have a good image what their master would do if he discovered what had happened. Orochimaru hadn't seen or visited the last Kaguya in quite some time, and if he discovered he was gone, well, odds are the group would be seeing their lives flash before their lives. If they were lucky. Kidomaru, why didn't you have your nets around the area so we would have known if he had left? Sakin said, turning the blame to the spider ninja with his brother Yukon. I can't do it 24/7, you moron. Kidomaru shouted. That takes a lot of time and chakra for me to do it. Jirobo should have been watching him, he said, and pointed 6 accusing fingers at the heavy ninja. Hey, don't put the blame on me, Jirobo said as the group argued. We didn't know he was going to up and leave. Tayuya, you go tell him that he's gone. He likes you the best. He may not kill badly you if you tell him. Fuck no, Tayuya responded at once, not wanting to be the scapegoat. The group continued arguing and were unaware of a figure approaching. What are you garbage arguing about? The voice said, and they turned as one and saw Kimimaro standing there, his arms folded across his chest, staring at them with a look of distaste. Where the hell have you been? Sakin demanded and walked towards him. Do you have any idea how pissed off he'd be if he discovered you was gone and we couldn't find you? He shouted at him. HMPH, where I go is not the concern of trash like you. Kimimaro responded as he had returned here to make sure nothing had happened and see to it that Orochimaru hadn't wondered where he went. He didn't see him often, but he would get suspicious. But coming back now and then, he wouldn't question what he was doing. I've been out training and I've come to get a refill of my medicine. Now get out of my way, he said and walked past him. Oh, you can't walk around here like you own the place. Sakin shouted at him. Where have you been? Tayuya asked him, her hands on her hips. You shouldn't be going places with the damn condition you're in, she said to him. HMPH, once my illness passes I'll be back at my previous form, he said as he believed he could withstand it despite the pain it put him in sometimes. Once it passed he would be strong again. Until then, what I do now is none of any of you business. I have things I must do before then, he told her, and then coughed a bit. Tayuya frowned as she watched him go. The others may buy his flimsy excuse, but she didn't. Just where had he gone and disappeared to? It wasn't like him to go off like this. Usually he'd never leave unless he was ordered by Orochimaru himself. The next day Naruto was by himself taking a break from his private training. Since he hadn't come back yet, he was working by himself and practicing his chakra control and drawing out weapons. The blonde had been working non-stop today and had been determined to show his cousin. This bloodline I have, it's something else. I've gotten stronger in a short amount of time. I've learned 3 times as much working with Kimimaro alone than I have with Kakashi and them, he said to himself, and thought back to Sasuke punching him and injuring his hand. But I've yet to gain anyone's approval. They still look down on me like I'm some dead last loser. I'm not some third-rate ninja. I will achieve my dream. He thought of the Uzumaki clan he had been told about, his ancestors. He wondered what they were like. Didn't the old man say they got wiped out due to a tsunami along with Whirlpool Village, the place being completely destroyed by it? Only his mother survived by the sound of it, and he never saw her. He let out a sigh. If that hadn't happened, maybe he'd have more than just an aloof cousin he never knew about for family. The Kaguya was his family as well, being his cousins from his mom's side, but they too were wiped out, and although Kimimaro didn't show it, he could tell that he too was lonely, that he was the only one left. The last ones. Hey, maybe we should have been put with Sasuke. Naruto said and laughed at his dry joke. Well, I'll just have to keep at it, keep getting stronger, it's time to get back to work. He got up and got ready to begin when a poof of smoke appeared before him and he saw Kakashi standing in front of him. Sensei, what are you doing here? Naruto asked, a bit surprised to see him. I was on my way home from the Hokage's office when I sensed you. I was going to wait, but I figured you should be the first to know. The copy nin said to him. First to know what? He asked. Since you've been asking him, he decided to grant your request. Tomorrow you, Sasuke and Sakura will be doing a C-class mission. A change of pace from our previous missions. I'll see you tomorrow morning. He told him and then disappeared in another poof of smoke, leaving Naruto at the training grounds. Pathetic weak trash, the stern man said and slugged at the young boy who dodged it narrowly. The man then backhanded him a stinging blow across his cheek. Fear equals weakness in the Kaguya clan, boy. He yelled at the child. Are you a weakling scum? No, father, the 4-year-old replied hesitantly. I'll beat that weakness and gentleness out of you one day, scum. The boy's father said and left his son by himself. The child watched him go as his father was head and ruler of the Kaguya clan and he was heir to the clan. He was often looked down upon by the others for his gentleness that the boy had, and some deemed him unfit to be the heir and should be casted out of the clan. The boy's father was known for his cruelty and would punish him harshly if he did not live up to his expectations. He heard a pair of footsteps and turned and saw a red-haired woman in a blue kimono walking towards him. He reached his arms out to her, seeing her. Kimimaro-kun, the woman whispered and took her son in her arms, holding him and his head pressed against her shoulder. She stroked his hair and gently kissed his forehead as she tended to her son. She was the only one who could face her husband's fiery wrath and come away unscathed, as she was an Uzumaki, the two having been married as an arranged marriage between the clans 5 years ago, and she was protective of her son, although in her youth she, like her sister, was a great fighter. Mommy, the boy said, and she laughed and smiled as she held him in her arms. No matter what happens, my Kimi-kun, not matter what danger you face in your life, I will always be there for you. Present time. Kimimaro Kaguya sat by himself as he remembered his mother, Ayako Uzumaki. The woman who had given birth to him and showed him the different lifestyle he could have. That he wasn't just a mindless, unthinking warrior that his father wanted him to be. She had protested his father's actions, including locking him up when he was 8 and visited him often. She had died along with the rest. He had lost her as well as every other member of his family and clan. Her death leaving a large hole in his heart. She knew that they were going to die that day and told him to run, to flee the field that day. He never bothered going back to the battlefield, knowing that she was gone. And now only he and her nephew was all that was left. He had left the base earlier, making sure to cover his tracks in case the rest of the Sound Four, particularly Tayuya, got suspicious and tried to follow him. From what he had found out, Orochimaru was not there. He instead was believed to be having talks with Tsunagakure, having gone with one of his spies in the Leaf to the hidden village of Sand in the Land of Wind, and wasn't expected to be back for at least a couple of weeks. This was good for him as it would allow him free access and he wouldn't know what he had been doing. Once he had finished training his cousin, he would return, a part of him thinking to bring, or in this case drag, his unconscious body, Naruto, back with him to Otogakure. Orochimaru would be most pleased with another Shikatsumiku user, and that would prove his worthiness and loyalty to the man. The Leaf Village didn't want anything to do with Naruto, he saw, so why not just take the boy to a place where he'd actually be used? He started to cough and took one of his medicine pills, the illness affecting him. He swallowed the pill and felt it start to give him less discomfort. He sighed to himself, wondering when the damn illness would be cured and leave him. It was starting to become a hindrance to him as it would almost cripple him. If it happened during a fight, he would be helpless to defend himself. Picking himself up, he set off in a run, heading back on the road to Konoha to continue Naruto's training. Elsewhere, unknown to Kimimaro, Naruto wasn't at the Leaf Village. He and the rest of Team 7 had been given a mission earlier in the day by the Hokage. They had been granted a C-class ranked mission to do and had been at it. Their mission was to be the bodyguards and escort for an old man named Tazuna to Wave Village, a small island town that he was heading to go see his family, his daughter and grandson, he had told them. But the man said he didn't want to risk going alone and so hired them to serve as protection from bandits and thieves that often littered the area. As Naruto walked alongside the old man who reeked of cheap sake, he noticed that Sasuke had been giving him looks as of late ever since the day before when they sparred, and he had completely outclassed him, much to the Uchihas and Sakura's shock. When he revealed that he knew how to walk on trees and water as well, Naruto had noticed Sasuke giving him looks. They were looks of envy, disbelief, jealousy. He couldn't believe that Mr. Uchiha, I'm an elite ninja and everyone else is beneath me, would be jealous of him. Then again, Sasuke was proud. Prouder than his cousin, and always held himself with the air of superiority towards others, even towards their sensei. And now that Naruto had something that he didn't, it was eating him up on the inside. After all, Naruto thought to himself, how could a last place dobi do something better than the prized prodigy of Konoha? And he had had the gall to demand him where his cousin had went and wanted to know where so he could find him and demand that he train him. If he had told Kimimaro that he would be lucky if he left walking on his own feet, as Kimimaro he doubted would take demands and orders kindly. Most likely Sasuke would find out the hard way what his answer would be. As the group continued on their mission, they came to a clearing and Kakashi called for a halt. Okay, I think we could all use a break right about now. We've been walking for the past couple of hours and Wave isn't too far from here. He said to them, let's rest here for a while and then we'll continue on. Naruto later on was by himself and doing a series of katas, practicing his footwork and fighting stances. He was doing some training when he sensed a presence. You're a bit far off from you friends, aren't you, boy? Tazuna asked the old man, taking a seat at a stump of a tree and pulling out a hidden flask of sake he had. He unscrewed the cork and took a long sip. Naruto allowed a dry chuckle. They aren't really my friends, old man. He said to him. I thought the Leaf Nins pride themselves on teamwork and working together. A group can't win if they are separated, can they? Tazuna asked him. Naruto stopped his training and let out a sigh, and the old man could see a burden in his eyes. It's not easy to work together when you're hated by your team and everyone else. Oh, everyone at Konoha is always looking down upon me, either they ignore me or mock me. Heck, the only reason I pulled pranks was so people would actually notice me. Even being yelled at is better than being ignored all your life. Naruto said to him, everyone there hates me. Haven't you got a mother or a father? Tazuna asked, looking at him. No, I don't have any family. Except for my cousin, and he's aloof and distant. Nobody wants me around. I heard from your sensei that you plan on becoming Hokage. Tazuna responded to him. Hey, yeah, in my dreams at this rate. I want to become Hokage cause people would then respect me, and they would stop looking down at me. Respect is what you want? From your peers and elders? Naruto shook his head. I want more than respect. I want friends. I want to be treated as an equal. Just once I want to know what it's like to be loved instead of always being treated like an outcast and have trash thrown at me. Sasuke people fawn over him all the time and would gladly have him walk all over him. Ever since he was born, people have treated him like he's a god. It may be their way of handling what happened to the Uchiha clan. Tazuna said with a shrug. But still, he's got the best teachers, a legion of fangirls a mile long. He lives like a king, getting the best treatment and offers. Kakashi spends all his time training him every day, and Sakura spends all her time fawning over him along with the other girls. He has the entire clan's scrolls containing jutsu that he can learn, and he's already shown to know most of them. I'm stuck and seen basically by everyone as nothing more than a dead last idiot who got made a genin by a fluke. Adobe, he said bitterly. And now I'm finally getting somewhere. I'm learning more from my cousin than I'll probably ever learn from Kakashi, and Sasuke demands that he is trained by him, and odds are he'll probably get his way like he always does. It's not fair. Life never is fair. Tazuna said, not to chastise him but understanding the boy. He too believed that what had happened to his family and his home believed it wasn't just what had happened to them. All we can do is go through the hurdles life puts in our way, often unexpectedly it seems like. Naruto let out a sigh. Just once I'd love nothing more than to show them all. To show everyone that I'm not a dead last loser like they all claim I am as they judge me before they even know me. That I'm more than what they think I am. That I'm not a monster, or a demon. That my name is Naruto Uzumaki and I am a ninja of Konohagakure, the hidden village of the leaf. Tazuna looked at him and nodded and standing up went to join back with the others. Naruto went back as well eventually enough and saw the others. Sasuke heard him coming and walked towards him. It's about time you got back, we've been waiting for you and our client. Once we finish this mission and head back I can finally talk to your cousin and have him train me. He said to him. Naruto glared at him at what he said but held his temper in check. I'm telling you again Sasuke, Kimimaro won't train you. He said to him. He will train me Dobi. Sasuke said and turned and left. Do you have a small penis or something? Naruto called out to him. Is that why you always have such a swelled head and ego? That stopped Sasuke in his tracks and he turned to glare at him. Sakura's face had turned into a tomato after what he just said. What did you say? Sasuke asked him. You're compensating for something with how you act. Naruto said and folded his arms across his chest. How dare you talk to me like that? Sasuke shouted at him. I'm getting tired of this attitude of yours. You think you're better than me? Better than everyone else in the world and they'll bow to your every whim? I don't think so. You're not getting your way Sasuke, not this time. He said to him. You have no right to. Sasuke started to say when he was cut off. I have every right in my mind to tell you what no one else has or will. Naruto interrupted him. Welcome to the real world Sasuke. The world doesn't work the way your daddy told you it would where all you have to do is stick your nose in the air and people will make a bridge for you out of their own bodies. No one cares that you're an Uchiha. I don't and neither does my cousin. I can walk on trees and water, so in my eyes, that makes me better than you since you can't do either. You want to get strong? Then get it off your own power, instead of trying to leech it off of others like a tick. That goes double for you Sakura. He said and turned his head at the pink-haired girl. Earn your strength instead of demanding it be given to you. I'm earning my strength with the training I'm getting from my cousin. I don't care if your fangirls all yell at me or if the villagers hate me even more, I'm not letting you get by with whatever you want all the time. Sasuke glared at him as no one ever talked to him like that. How dare this fool try and tell him what to do? That's enough, Kakashi said having stepped back and watched it unfold. He had sensed something like this would soon happen with his dysfunctional team. Both of you stop. I won't have you arguing and getting into fights during our mission. We still have a way to go before our client is safe. Naruto and Sasuke glared at one another but left it at that. He has no right talking to Sasuke-kun like that, Sakura said to Kakashi as they went on and her and him were in the back of the group. How could he even think to say such things to him? You shouldn't be so upset. You have work to do as well, Kakashi said to her. What? Sakura said, a surprised look on her face. Naruto has made an effort to improve himself these past days and he has gotten stronger. I would rank him almost even with Sasuke now with the new skills he's shown. But you haven't done anything, he said to her. You have a lot of room to grow up. This isn't a school trip Sakura, this is serious. Those who are hindrances are of no use in the ninja world. I'm not a hindrance, she protested. You don't do much except gush over and watch Sasuke when he's training. You tire easily and have shown little to no improvement. If something happens all of us need to be ready, you just can't watch from the sidelines. He said to her and moved on ahead. The group continued on their way when Kakashi called for them to stop. He walked forward and noticed a puddle in the middle of the road. He dipped a hand into it and pulled it out. Pretty warm day for a freshly made puddle in the middle of the road, he said as if it was nothing important. Naruto suddenly felt two presences coming fast. Watch out, he shouted, and two clawed and mask-wearing ninjas with horns on their headbands descended from the trees and went to stab Kakashi, who moved out of the way. Kill them, one said, and the other produced a chain with razor-sharp edges. Whirling it overhead, he lashed out at them and they just missed it. He spun it again and aimed it at Tazuna, going to ensnare him. The old man stood helplessly when Kakashi appeared and grabbing him leapt out of the way. Stupid fools, one of them said and started to charge after Sasuke, who leapt over him. Fire it, he shouted at his sibling, and he fired the chain and it locked together with their gauntlets, and the two began zigzagging, attempting to ensnare Sasuke, who barely dodged them. Naruto, seeing this, backed up a bit so no one would notice him, and focusing his chakra formed two bones coming out of his shoulders. Focusing, he pulled them out and connected them, turning them back into their 5-foot-long combined blade, and rushed forward. Die! The two assassins shouted at Sasuke and leapt, planning on ensnaring him with their razor-sharp chain. Sasuke stood his ground as they descended down upon him, ready to make a move, when Naruto rushed past him and, wielding a weapon he didn't see him produce, leapt up and slashed at the chain, which shattered into multiple pieces. What? The brothers shouted in disbelief as their weapon was now useless. Roaring One attempted to stab Naruto and shred his face with his claws when Naruto backed up and blocked, spinning his weapon to deflect his attacks. The claws met with his blade and a power struggle ensued. Naruto grunted as the two struggled for dominance when he felt he remembered Kimimoro's lesson and words, how he could use any part of his body to use it. Drilling bullets, he shouted, and the tips of his fingers shoot out, fired and hit the ninja, and he fell backwards with blood seeping from his wounds. I'll kill you, the other seeing it shouted, but he was struck down by Kakashi, who knocked him out. How'd he do that? Sasuke questioned as he looked at Naruto and the weapon he had. He had no summon scroll with him, nor any sheath. How did he produce that out of nowhere? What was more infuriatingly was that Naruto had saved him and held his own against them. That's over with, Kakashi said, and producing a rope began tying the two up and bandaged the wound the other had gotten and tied them to a tree. These two are missing nins, we'll leave them here and the proper authorities will get them. However, it seemed we weren't the target of their assault, he said, and turned to look at Tazuna, who had a sweat drop on his forehead. Is there something you forgot to tell us? He asked the man. Elsewhere? Ah, please have mercy, the thug said as the white-haired figure planted a foot on his chest. Who is your boss? Kimimaro asked and pressed his foot down harder. You killed him, liar, Kimimaro said, and reaching down picked the man up from the ground by his throat. Around them were several dead bodies. Having not sensed Naruto's presence at Konoha, the Kaguya had went off in search of his cousin and easily picked up the trail to see what he was doing. Along the way he had been ambushed by a group of thieves and brigands. The simple thugs, thinking numbers and size mean strength, attacked him and had been slaughtered to a man without even landing a blow on Kimimaro. Tell me, Kimimaro said, adding pressure, knowing that this was more than just a group of vagabonds. Have you seen a blonde-haired boy come this way? I don't know. More pressure was added. Oh, okay. I did see some kids and a jonin from the Leaf not an hour ago, and one was blonde. Gato, our boss, wants the man they were escorting dead. We were going to ambush them when we were told not to by his newest man. Kimimaro sensed the man was telling the truth and that his cousin was in danger. What else? The old geezer is wanted dead and we'll be paid a fortune for doing so. He threatens Gato-sama's business. This new guy, he's stronger than all of us combined. Than all of us put together. He's some missing nin from Mist with a big sword. He's a demon, I tell you. Zabuza Momochi. Kimimaro recognized that name. He knew that very well. The butcher of the 7 swordsmen, he said, and the thug began laughing. Yeah, by the time he reaches those kids they'll be toast. You better get out of here as well unless you want to gack. The man's words were stopped when a pair of bones sprouted into his neck from Kimimaro, who withdrew the bones and dropped him to the ground. Picking up the pace, he broke off into a run as fast as he could, knowing full well just how powerful Zabuza was and the danger he would have to his cousin. So I see, Kakashi said, folding his arms across his chest as Tazuna finished his tale. So that's why you need to go to Wave, and you lacked the money to hire adequate protection from this Gato who wants you dead. After fending off the attack from the would-be assassins, Kakashi had cornered the old man as he knew they were aiming for him, not them. Sensing they had been deceived, he told Tazuna to tell him why an old man like himself was being targeted by Chunin-level assassins. The old man had told them everything, why he needed to go to Wave, his home, which was under the control of a businessman known as Gato, who ruled with an iron fist, and any who got in his way were harshly executed. He ruled the island and had crippled its economy and broken its inhabitants' spirit. The only thing that would stop his reign would be if Wave was connected to the mainland, connecting it to the rest of the world, and would destroy his empire. Tazuna was a bridge builder and had made the move to build the bridge, hiring workers and getting supplies, and if he could get there he could begin construction of it. Gato, not wanting this at all, had ordered his immediate death, and Tazuna was now targeted by killers. Please, you must get me to Wave. I'm sorry I deceived you, but you must understand, without the bridge, Wave will never recover and Gato will be given free rein to continue his tyranny. You must get me there, the old man said, and he appeared to be on the verge of breaking down into tears. We gotta do something, Kakashi-sensei. We can't just stand by and do nothing, Naruto said to him, stepping forward, the man's tail touching him. We can deal with these assassins. We can get him to Wave. This isn't a stroll through the park, Naruto. At the least this is now a B class or even a class mission. He chided his student. However, I do see your point, Tazuna. Something must be done, as we've heard reports about Gato's methods and the Leaf and Fire country rarely does business with him. He looked at his students and then back at the old man. Closing his eyes for a long moment, he reopened them. Very well, we shall escort you and protect you during our trip to Wave. We've gone too far now anyway. By the time we got back to Konoha and told Sarutobi and the council about Wave's troubles, odds are this Gato would have sent even more men after you. Wave is only about 45 minutes to an hour from here. We can make it easily if we go at a fast pace. If our luck holds, those two were the last of the only assassins he hired right now, he said, coming to a decision. He then turned to his team. Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura. This is now a very dangerous mission. We are to guard him with our lives. Do you understand? Hi, Kakashi-sensei. All three said at once and bowed. Then let's go, he ordered them, and they quickly left. Going at a quick pace, they headed their way towards Wave, prepared to face any obstacle that would be thrown at them. As they went, however, Sasuke was confused and upset over what had happened earlier in the fight. Naruto had saved his life and had somehow pulled a long blade out of nowhere. He couldn't have carried it on his person, and he knew Naruto didn't have any summon scrolls that most ninja would carry. How did he do it? It was as if he had pulled it out of himself with the way it had appeared, and he didn't see how Naruto was able to defeat one of the hired assassins, as he only saw him fall down on his back, blood seeping from his wounds. The wound was not that of a blade, so how had he done it? It angered him to think that Naruto, of all people, the boy who placed dead last at the academy, somehow in the span of over a week had learned water walking and tree walking along with chakra control. How was he able to do something that he couldn't? To the Uchiha it seemed unnatural that he, an unknown, would be able to excel in something that he wasn't able to do it. No matter, I'll master tree and water walking soon enough and surpass him, he thought to himself, refusing to believe he would be outranked by him. The group continued on their way towards Wave, looking to safely escort Tazuna to the island. Naruto in front thought back as well to the earlier fight. He had successfully used the long-range jutsu back there, having practicing it before. He had gotten stronger, and a part of him was proud he had held his own against them. But he had also noticed the looks Sasuke had been giving him as of late. Sasuke was jealous by what he saw and envious that Naruto had somehow gotten stronger than him. It was due to his training with his cousin that he had gotten stronger. Kimamero's training was paying off, it looked like, and Naruto was pleased with the results. He was tired of being looked down by his sensei and teammates and the civilians of Konoha as nothing more than the dead last loser who'd never amount to anything. He was going to show them that he was more than what they thought of him. He'd master Shikatsumiku and gain Kimamero's respect as well. The group continued on, knowing of the danger ahead. Later, well, looks like we're home free. Wave's not less than 10 minutes from here, Kakashi said to them, looking out into the distance, and faintly the island could be seen. So far there had been no trouble of any kind. No ambushes, no traps, nothing. As if all possible threats had vanished. And for Kakashi that was a good thing. Alright, let's get there, Naruto said, and almost broke off into a run. Naruto, stay with the group. We're not there yet, so don't drop your guard just yet, Kakashi said to him, who nodded. The group continued going now at a leisurely pace. Their guard relaxed for a moment as they neared their destination, and it appeared that they wouldn't have any trouble at all getting there. Naruto, walking with Tazuna, suddenly felt an ominous feeling grow in the pit of his stomach, as if something was near. He rubbed his belly, thinking he was just hungry, and tried to make it go away. He looked over at Kakashi and saw that he had gone on guard, and his body was tensing up as well, as if he was expecting something to happen. Where'd this mist come from? Sakura asked out loud as a thick mist started to develop around them, making it harder to see. It was cloudy now, but this fog-like mist shouldn't have appeared so suddenly. It wasn't that late. Naruto's queasy feeling started to grow and he felt that it was as if they were being watched from afar. He looked around and tried to peer through the mist but was unable to as it got thicker and thicker around them. Stop, Kakashi ordered them all, calling for a halt. Don't make any sudden movements, any of you. That's what he wants, as he's waiting for one of us to break. If you do, he'll run you through, he said to them and moved to get in front of Tazuna. Sakura gulped a look of fear on her face and moved towards Sasuke, who was peering out into the distance as well. Naruto's senses were heightened to their fullest as he got into a ready stance and tensed his body ready to spring into action. Nobody moved for a whole minute, each one waiting for what was going to happen. It seemed their target took pleasure in making them wait. Kakashi continued looking out into the distance when his lone eye widened. Move, he shouted, and the group scattered, and Naruto saw flying past his head a giant blade, and it flew right past him and landed and stuck itself into a tree. Naruto then saw a man leap overhead of them all in a somersault and landed on the hilt of the blade. He wore a flak jacket and shinobi-styled pants and had his mouth and lower face covered with bandages. On his forehead he wore an Hitai aid with the symbol for mist on it that had a slash through it. His piercing eyes glared at them all as he looked down at them distastefully. More fodder for me to dispose of, he said, and leapt down and pulled out the Zanbato from the tree. Nothing personal, so don't think I have something against any of you, but I got orders and money's been kinda tight lately, he said to them. Who the hell are you? Naruto asked, as he could tell that this ninja just by looking at him was far beyond your average assassin. His name is Zabuza Momochi, the demon of Kirigakure who slaughtered each and every one of his classmates in his youth, with him the only survivor. Kakashi said, his eye narrowing. Codename: the Butcher of the Seven Swordsmen. Zabuza looked at him amused and threw his head back and let out a dark laugh. I see my reputation precedes me. Copy Nin of the Leaf. Tazuna is my target, so leave now unless you want to join the others who have tasted the steel of my weapon. I don't think so, Kakashi said, and turned to the others. Protect Tazuna at all costs, he shouted, and turned to see Zabuza charging him. Zabuza slashed at him that would have cut a full-grown cow in half, and Kakashi evaded it and ducked under the next swing. Ducking and evading the attacks, he delivered a kick to Zabuza's face, knocking him into the mist. Zabuza charged right back out, roaring at him and swinging at him. Kakashi back-flipped away from them, doing so revealing his right eye and getting out a kunai through one, which hit him in the throat. Zabuza then burst into a puddle of water. A copy, Naruto, watch out, Kakashi shouted and turned at Naruto as suddenly the real Zabuza appeared in his direction and, leaping over, prepared to deliver an overhead swing that would slice him down the middle. Naruto, not expecting it and stunned, could only bring his hands up to try to defend himself. Naruto, the group shouted as it appeared he was going to be killed, as Kakashi couldn't make it in time. Naruto closed his eyes and braced himself for the end when he heard the sound of steel scraping against steel. He opened his eyes and saw what had happened. What the? Zabuza shouted as, standing in front of him, having blocked his attack with two swords, was a white-haired figure with green eyes and two red dots on his forehead. Kimimaro? Naruto shouted, seeing his cousin in front of him, stunned to see him in front of him just now. Kimimaro let out a grunt and, giving a heave, outpowered Zabuza and tossed him backwards. Zabuza landed on his feet and looked at him. A Kaguya alive? He said, shock in his voice. He was certain they had been all but wiped out in the battle years ago, before he himself had left Mist. And as he looked at him, he felt in the back of his mind that he recognized the teenager in front of him. Drilling bullets, Kimimaro shouted and fired bones from the tips of his fingers at him. Zabuza brought his weapon up and deflected them. The last Kaguya, the Mizukage missed one, it looks like, he said to him. Kaguya? Kakashi repeated, recognizing it. That barbaric war-loving clan from Mist? They was believed to have been killed to the last man years ago. This boy was from that clan, and he was the special instructor Sarutobi had given Naruto? No matter, I'll end it today, Zabuza shouted and charged him, and Kimimaro, a stern look on his face, pulled out two bone-like swords from his arms, surprising everyone at what he just did, and blocked his attack. Naruto, seeing it, knew that Kimimaro clearly didn't have the hesitance to use Shikatsumiyaku like he did in front of everyone. Kimimaro blocked and parried Zabuza's swings with his weapons, the prodigy holding his own against him. He jabbed and countered attacked Zabuza's attacks, driving him back. Zabuza planted his blade and began a long series of hand symbols with his hands, a snarling look in his eyes. Water style. Water dragon jutsu. He shouted and sent a large wave of water shaped like a dragon towards Kimimaro, which hit him and knocked him off his feet. Kimimaro kicked up and despite being soaked appeared to have suffered no serious damage from it. He then removed his shirt, leaving his chest exposed. Dance of the Larch, shouted Kimimaro, and he launched himself and began spinning rapidly as bones stuck out of his upper body and outstretched, aiming at Zabuza, who was struck in the shoulders by some of them and backed up. Holy! Naruto shouted, seeing him pull that off. Did that mean he would be able to do that as well? Zabuza backed up away from him as he finally stopped spinning and his bones went back into his body. I see you have your clan's ability. Perhaps it's time I end this, he said and got ready to perform a jutsu. Kimimaro, his shirt back on, got ready to defend himself when he felt a searing pain in his body. He started coughing harshly suddenly and covering his mouth began to spat up blood. No, not now, he thought to himself as he was being affected by his illness. Zabuza, seeing a golden opportunity, did not question what was happening and went to attack the defenseless ninja. Now you die, he shouted and went to behead him when Naruto suddenly tackled the ill ninja out of the way. Stupid brat, he shouted and went to attack him when he was kicked aside by Kakashi. Damn you, it's time to finish this, Kakashi said, and his right eye was shown to be different from the other. Zabuza, it's time we end this. Your days of butchering are at an end, Kakashi said and began planning a powerful jutsu. Zabuza backed up, sensing it was going to be powerful as lightning started to crack around him. Take this. Kakashi started preparing to unleash his strongest attack he had. Ran. Just when he was about to do it, Zabuza lurched forward and collapsed on his stomach. This caught Kakashi off guard and he stopped his attack as he sensed the man's energy having depleted as well with his chakra. Stepping forward, he examined him and saw 3 small needles sticking into his neck. Senbon? He said, asking out loud. That was from me, a voice said, and they turned and saw a young ninja, his face covered by a mask, step forward. A hunter nin, Kakashi said as the figure walked towards them. I managed to kill him while he was off guard. I've been hunting him for 2 years and I've finally ended his life. The ninja said, he's killed many of my comrades and friends, so you see why I wanted this beast dead. Finally the demon has been put down, he said and gave the body a kick, glaring down at the body from the mask the person worn. You took down that guy with only needles? Naruto asked out loud. Don't underestimate him. This ninja may be young as you and the others, but he has trained all his life. Some his age are even stronger than me, Kakashi told him. What will you do with the body? I'll dispose of it. Mist has long wanted Zabuza's head for what he has done with his crimes. Good day to you all, he said to them, and reaching down picked the body up and carried him on his back. Naruto watched them go and looked at his cousin. Kimimaro, what are you doing here? He asked him as he saw him pop a pill into his mouth. The figure coughed and stood up. I sensed you wasn't at Konoha, so I followed your trail and tracks. You're lucky I showed, as you would have died if I hadn't trash, he said, and Naruto rolled his eyes, used to the nickname by now. Kimimaro, was it? Kakashi said, stepping forward. I thank you for saving my student's life back there. HMPH, my interests in the boy is of my own. If he finds himself in a position such as that again, he may not find himself rescued this time. Naruto let out a sigh, and here he'd be hoping Kimimaro would be happy with his improvement. Back to square one it looked like. Well then, since you have come all this way, I'd like to ask if you'd come with us. We're protecting our client Tazuna here while he's in wave. We could use the extra help, and I can tell you're talented and a skilled shinobi, Kakashi said to him, although the back of his mind was wondering about the Kaguya's ability and how Sarutobi found him. Very well then, I'll join you. I have training to continue with the boy anyway, Kimimaro said to him. Kakashi then clutched his head and fell to one knee. Ah, sorry about that. When I use my Sharingan eye, it has the tendency to take a bit out of me, leaving me a bit dizzy. I'll be all right in a sec. Tazuna clapped the man on the back. Let's get you to my daughters so you can rest up. All of you have my thanks. The added group went to head to wave, and Naruto was walking with his cousin. Kimimaro-san, how'd you find us? I followed the trail and came upon two tied-up fools. One of them had piercing wounds. I see you have mastered the long-range jutsu. Kimimaro said to him. You're lucky I found you when I did, as you were going to die back there. I know. You still have much work to do, Kimimaro told him. This was your first true battle, I see, and you would have been killed if not for me. Eventually you'll see that the only way one day to leave a battle is to kill your enemy. He said and went up ahead. The group soon arrived at Wave and saw the ruined state that it was in. Homes were in disrepair and the streets were empty and the people showed no signs of life. Tired skinny bodies that were malnourished and shells of their former selves walked the road, not even looking where they was going. This is my home. It used to be a happy place, filled with music and laughter and joy. Tazuna said to them all. Until Gato came and took control of everything, his greed and lust for power insatiable, the damn monster, killing all who got in his way. Living the high life while my people and family starve, he said with a spat and his eyes had anger in them. As long as Wave is cut off from the mainland, he will continue to rule. I won't let that happen any longer. As they continued to walk, they looked at the people who apparently had given up all hope. None of them, it seemed, had any desire to live left, as if they were ready to drop down and die. How horrible, Sakura said as she saw a funeral and a young couple grieving over the loss of their child. The girl looking on felt tears start to well up in her eyes at what she saw. Tazuna-san, a voice shouted and a group of people showed up. We've feared you may have been killed. The leader of the group said to the bridge maker. I'm fine. These leaf nins got me here safely. Is everything set up? He asked them. Yes, sir. All the equipment and supplies are here. We've just been waiting for you. Good, very good. We'll start immediately tomorrow. Guard the equipment and don't let anything happen to it. He ordered them. Sir. The hired workers shouted and went to go. They soon came to a house and Tazuna knocked gently on it. The door opened slowly and a young pretty woman, seeing him, gasped and wrapped her arms around him. Father, I thought you was dead, she said to him, and he stroked her hair. There, my daughter. It's all right. I'm here now, Tsunami, he said to her, hugging her back. Come inside, all of you, she said, and ushered them in and closed the door. I feared you was dead. After what happened when Gato discovered your men here, I knew you'd be in trouble. The woman said later as they sat around a table, except for Kimimaro, who was standing in a corner by himself. Yes, I knew the risk, but it's worth it if my plan works. I long to see my grandson smile again. Tazuna said to her. Kakashi, it will take at least a week for it to be built. Can I count on you to stay here and protect us during that time? Of course. We'd gladly stay here and help out however we can. He said to him. Yeah, we can't let you do this by yourself. Naruto said to him. We'll do whatever it takes to get it done. I thank you, all of you, from the bottom of my heart. He said to them. Good then, let's get some rest, all of us. We'll be training whenever we're not guarding the bridge. Sasuke, Sakura, it's time you learned tree walking. Naruto, I expect you and Kimimaro will train together as well. We'll alternate shifts when it comes to guarding the workers. I have a feeling Gato won't just stand by. Kakashi said to them. Is there any problem with that? He looked at his students, who didn't say anything, and then at Kimimaro, who had a plain look on his face which he took for no problem from the Kaguya. All right then, let's get started, he said, as it would be a long week. Kimimaro Kaguya was up on the rooftop of the home they were staying in. The stoic teenager seated down as it was late at night and he was by himself. The others were already asleep and he could hear the snoring of his cousin, which sounded like a chainsaw going off. He looked over the decrepit village and the state of it, and the mission the boy and his team were doing didn't concern him. All that mattered to him was training his cousin, teaching him everything he knew about Shikatsumiku. He let out a cough and clutched at his chest, the pain growing. Every day it seemed like it was growing worse. Instead of getting better, it was worsening. He thought for sure it could have gone away by now, but it was still in his system, still affecting him and weakening him. This shouldn't be happening. He had had a goal for how he wanted his life to end, to die a glorious death in battle, or that which would benefit his master. Not collapsing in the middle of the street or on a bed covered in his fluids and sweat. He was a warrior, and he sought a warrior's end to his life, as a Kaguya believed that he could only find peace when he had died on the field in battle, not sick in bed and under constant pain. So this is my fate, to die a meaningless death, gone forever and forgotten. he said to himself bitterly, and his eyes narrowed angrily. No, not me. This will not be the end of my life, he said and stood up. I will continue living. The world may believe that I will die, but I am a survivor. I will continue on long past the time they believe I will end. I will not be claimed by a damn illness. The Kaguya line will not stop here, he said, and reaching and pulling a short knife out of his chest cut his hand and clutched the bloody hand into a fist. I swear it. The next morning. All right then. Walking on trees requires good chakra control and a keen sense of mind, Kakashi said to his two students as he had set up 2 tree poles. Sasuke and Sakura were with him while Naruto was with his cousin. Naruto not there since he already knew how to walk on trees, much to Sasuke's irritation. It's not as easy as it looks, he said, and demonstrated it, walking up it with little difficulty and reading one of his books. Not enough control and you'll fall right off. Too much and you'll damage the tree with all the chakra you're sending into it. The right amount is required, he said to them and leapt down. Channel your chakra into your legs and feet and you will be able to walk up these poles. Once you get the hang of it, you'll be able to do this even in your sleep. The two started practicing walking on trees, and to their and their sensei's surprise, Sakura was able to get the hang of it and was able to go further than Sasuke was able to on their first try. The pink-haired girl showing surprisingly good chakra control with the lack of training she had done. As Kakashi looked on as they practiced it, he noticed that Sasuke wasn't all that focused on the object at hand. The boy's mind seemed to be elsewhere, as if there was something else he would rather be doing. Sasuke was able to go up by 1/5 of the way by the end of their training, but it seemed like he was more concerned with other things than what they was doing right now. The Uchiha was going to be in for a rude awakening if he kept this up, he knew. But rather than talk to him, he decided to let him go his own course and find out for himself what was going to happen. After all, the weed that's the most stubborn winds up being cut down by the sharpest blade. Naruto was with his cousin practicing again with Kimimaro, the two working in hand-to-hand combat. They were on top of a hill and that gave them a good view of the island, and the beginning of the construction of the bridge could be seen as Tazuna was giving out orders to his workers and other volunteers who hastily begun building and following his instructions, as the bridge would take a week to build. Naruto ducked under a kick and threw a punch at him, which Kimimaro caught and twisted his arm and made him hiss in pain. Naruto struggled to break free and was caught with a backhanded slap to his face. More of an insult than a blow by him. Naruto brought his free arm up and brought it down on Kimimaro's arm, breaking his hold on him. Naruto charged him and kicked at him in a diagonal angle, which Kimimaro evaded. Naruto then followed it up with a spin kick, which again he dodged. He went for a chop to his neck when Kimimaro ducked low under, and before Naruto could register what he was doing, delivered several fast punches to his stomach and abdomen and then uppercutted him in the jaw. Naruto rolled along the ground and clutched his jaw when he stopped. Even though he had extra strong bones and skeletal system that served as armor, it didn't mean that he was invincible and immune to damage. Get up, trash, Kimimaro ordered him, and Naruto glared at him and sprung up. Getting several shuriken out and throwing them, which Kimimaro dodged, he then charged him from behind using chakra to enhance his speed. Predictable, Kimimaro said as if he was bored, and went to deliver an elbow behind him to his face. Naruto was ready and doing several hand symbols disappeared in place of a log, surprising Kimimaro. He looked up and saw Naruto reappear and dive down at him. Kimimaro leapt out of the way just in time, missing his attack. Naruto then revealed kunai and threw them as well at him. Kimimaro defended himself and despite a few cuts on his outfit showed no damage. Enough, Kimimaro said to him, and Naruto thought he was calling for an end. Instead, Kimimaro appeared right in front of him with speed that shocked Naruto, and dropping low delivered a hard powerful kick right into his jaw, sending the Kyuubi child high up into the air by the force of it. Kimimaro then followed it up by leaping up as well into the air and over Naruto. Grabbing his head with his hands, he then used his head as a balance beam and performed a headstand on top of him. Green met blue as the two locked eyes with another. Dance of the Falling Star. Kimimaro then shouted and bringing his body down delivered a hard blow with both his knees right into Naruto's skull, bashing his head with them. The force of the blow knocked Naruto out of the air and down onto the ground with a fast crash as he hit hard, causing a small crater to form and dust to fly up into the air. I take it that's another one of your moves you can use and didn't tell me, Naruto said 5 minutes later, holding his head as the two seated at a bench. Not even Sakura's punches hurt that much. HMPH. You can use it as well once you've learned how to do it, and there are 2 different variations of it. Trash. Kimimaro said to him. The first is what I did to you. The second is where I sprout bones out of my knees and skewer my enemy's head with them right into his brain. Naruto, learning that, was glad he got the first one instead of the second one. You've never told me about you and the Kaguya clan. Except for they got wiped out years ago. What was your father like? Naruto asked him, as he never told him about his own family. Kimimaro scowled as the boy brought back unwanted memories of his childhood. My father was a cruel, insane man. He drove our clan into ruin with his bloodthirstiness. We would still be around if it weren't for him. He said bitterly. What did he do? He'd incite war for no reason, even when we were at a disadvantage and none of us were fully healed and ready for battle. He turned on our allies and made enemies out of everyone, even our longtime companions. His lust for destruction led to us being destroyed as the bastard took our clan with him. Kimimaro said, and Naruto saw anger in his eyes. No, not anger, rage. That's what was in his cousin's eyes and voice right now. The worthless bastard had me locked up when I was still young, fearing that his own son would kill him in his sleep and take control like he had done to his own father, my grandfather. The Kaguya clan was once a proud, disciplined clan destined for greatness. Thanks to him we lost everything and became reviled as nothing more than barbarians. It was because of him that Mist eventually turned against us. We may have discovered it each sooner if he hadn't rejected an alliance with the Leaf. Naruto looked at him, never knowing anything about this. He had rarely heard anything, to be honest, about the outside hidden villages and how they acted. The fact that a father would do such a thing to his own child made him sick. As his heir, he trained me in using shikatsumiku. His methods were brutal and remorseless, as he insulted me and beat me whenever I failed his high expectations, as he trained me to be the perfect soldier and encouraged the rest of the clan to do so. Although cruel, even they thought he was going too far, but they feared his wrath. If not for the healing factor I have, odds are my entire body would be littered with scars. He said, and the tone in his voice told Naruto he didn't want to talk anymore about it. Naruto looked at him, seeing the anger in his eyes and the hatred he had for the man, who was Naruto's uncle. What about your mother, my aunt? He asked, and Kimimaro's features softened and faintly a smile showed for a second. My mother, she raised me and gave me life, always tending to me and concerned how I was doing. She spared me from my father when he was in one of his moods and was quite the fighter herself. Not even he dared to strike her. She taught me more than just being a mindless killing machine. Taught me to appreciate beauty in life, such as flowers. He said, and stroked a flower that was nearby. When I was locked up, she visited me daily, always encouraging me and comforting me. If not for the war with Mist, I believe she would have killed my father and taken control of the clan and brought it back to its greatness. Wow, sounds like you've led a rough life. What happened after you fled the battle? Naruto asked, referring to the battle with Mist that wiped the Kaguya clan out. Afterwards, I wandered from place to place, barely knowing or caring where I was going. Eating and drinking just enough to live as I wandered the land. After a while I met a man who took an interest in me, and after looking at me asked me to come with him. He said, and remembered his words as the pale-skinned black-haired man with golden snake-like eyes looked down at him. Maybe there is no point in life. Maybe it's all just an illusion, what we are doing, pretending what we do is important when it's actually meaningless. But maybe there's a point to life and we just have to find it. Let's find it together. Huh, so you live with this guy or something? Naruto asked, no clue who the man really was. I'm indebted to him. Yes, that is correct. Once I fulfill my duty and train you, I shall head back to him. Kimimaro responded and stood up. Naruto stood up as well and started to follow him. As they walked, 3 armed men appeared and stood in front of them, blocking the way. Wanna pass? You have to pay up. The first one said, and Naruto could tell that these were hired men that Tazuna had warned them about, that Gato used. As Waves enforcers were charged with making sure no one does anything suspicious towards Gato-sama. 10 ryo each now handed over. The second said as they all held a weapon of sorts. Hand over your money now and you'll live. Don't and we might have to rough you up a bit. The third said, licking his torn lips. Kimimaro stared at them with a bored expression and reached to his robe as if going to pay them. The thugs grinned, thinking he would submit to them. What they didn't expect was for him to pull a bone blade out and do a horizontal slash, cutting through their weapons in less than a second. To them it seemed as if their weapons just fell apart. What we meant was, if you need money, have ours. The cowards shouted and throwing their money and weapons down ran away as fast as they could. Kimimaro put his blade back into his chest and continued walking as Naruto quickly picked up the money. If they weren't going to use it, might as well use it himself. They reached Tazuna's house shortly afterwards and saw the rest had gathered there as well. Good to see you're back, Kakashi said reading his novel. Your and Sakura's shift of guarding the workers begins soon, he said to Naruto. Naruto was about to speak when a young boy bumped into and walked past them coldly and with an air of indifference. Inari, his mother Tsunami snapped at him. Don't be rude to our guests, she said to her son. What's the point? The boy asked with little emotion and headed into another room. Tsunami shook her head and the group gave her sympathetic looks as she had told them about him. The boy, her son, having lost his spirit and hope for life when his father-in-law was executed brutally by Gato and his men for opposing him in the center of the village in front of everyone. The man had been the only one to stand up to him, and after his death none opposed the businessman. Inari had pretty much all but given up along with most of the residents of Wave. Please don't be offended, I've tried helping him, it's just that. It's all right, ma'am, he'll get better. I'm sure of it, Kakashi said to her, waving her apology away. I can only hope so, she responded sadly. Sasuke then stood up and walked towards Kimimaro. I've been meaning to ask you lately. I want you to train me, he said to him. Here we go, Naruto said to himself, rolling his eyes, expecting that this would happen sooner or later. You are a skilled ninja, I can see that, and very powerful despite your age. A natural at what you do, Sasuke began. I want you to train me and help me get more powerful and stronger, he said to him, as he had been wanting this conversation ever since he had joined up with him. You shouldn't bother yourself anymore with the Dobi, he's a dead last fool who won't ever improve. I am head of the graduating Genin class and a natural prodigy, as well as the last of the Uchiha clan, that which founded Konoha, the Leaf Village. An elite nin such as myself could learn much from you, as I desire strength to get revenge on my elder brother. So train me and I shall be closer to achieving my goal, he said, and although he was asking him, Naruto detected by the tone that he was demanding him. Kimimaro stared at him as the Uchiha and Kaguya stared at one another. So what do you say? Will you train me? Sasuke asked with a smirk. No, Kimimaro responded, his voice lacking emotion. What? Sasuke responded, disbelief on his face. I told you before, I don't concern myself with weak garbage, Kimimaro said to him. What did you call me? Sasuke shouted at him, furious at what he said. Training you, a weakling with an overinflated ego of himself, would be nothing but a waste of my time, Kimimaro replied to him. Told ya he wouldn't, Naruto said to him, not surprised at his cousin's response. You train the Dobi, does that mean you think I'm weaker than him? Sasuke said to him, losing his temper. Yes, Kimimaro said to him, and Naruto wasn't sure if he just complimented him or insulted Sasuke with that. You are weaker than trash. The Uchiha glared at him. How dare you believe I am weaker than Naruto? I am of the greatest clan in the world, possessing the Sharingan bloodline, which I will soon activate and master. How can a fool like yourself believe I am garbage? What makes him so special that you can train him and not me? It matters not to me that you are an Uchiha, and if you continue this up and demand that I train you, I will end your life, Kimimaro said in a threatening tone, and turned and exited the house. Not everyone will give in to your requests and demands because of your name, Sasuke, Kakashi said to the angry Uchiha. And there are some things you can't learn, no matter what you believe, he said, as he sensed he knew what Kimimaro was capable of doing. No one could teach how to do it, that's for certain. Sasuke glared at him, upset and furious over what just happened. I can't believe that fool wouldn't train Sasuke-kun, Sakura said a half hour later, as she and Naruto were on guard duty at the construction site where Tazuna and the workers were doing their work. How can he say no to someone as great as Sasuke-kun? She said, frowning. Sasuke can't get everything he wants all the time, Naruto said to her. Kimimaro-san won't train him cause Sasuke won't accept his faults. Well, what about you? Why'd he come all the way here just to train you instead of waiting in Konoha? She asked him, her arms folded across her chest, the 12-year-old pouting. Because he was under orders by the Hokage himself. I didn't expect him to come out this far either, he said to her with a shrug. Well, your training must be going pretty bad if he comes out here. Have you even learned anything at all? Naruto glared at her as she along with the other fangirls Sasuke had often called him names and insults back whenever he challenged their beloved Uchiha. She had no right to insult him since she did nothing but complain and fawn over him. Sakura, you got no right to complain all the time, he said, dropping the chan he usually called her. All you do is sit there and grip and fawn over your precious Sasuke. Grow up, will you? He said to her. You can't talk to me like. Yes, I can, he snapped at her. You want people to take you seriously? You want to become a true kunoichi? Then grow the hell up and stop acting like a schoolgirl who's crying cause she broke a nail. He said to her, surprising her. I've tried being patient with you, but all you've done is nothing. Your stamina and energy is pathetic, you barely have any control over your chakra. You do nothing at all to better yourself. This isn't a game for crying out loud, did you ever think you may possibly die out here? He said to her. I'm tired of covering you as except for watering plants on one of our D missions you've done nothing except sit there and complain. Sakura frowned at him. First Kakashi, now him, was getting onto her. You may think that just because you graduated the top female you don't have to do anything. Well, you're wrong. I'm improving myself and you have yet to do anything. Keep this up and then we'll see who's actually the dead last loser really is. He told her and turned to help out the workers with his clones. Sakura huffed angrily at what he said, his words stinging her with what he just said. She'd show him, she'd show everybody. The following 3 days passed for the group and they continued their training and working. Kakashi was surprised when Sakura showed an aggressive side and took her challenge of tree walking head on and taking it more seriously and not spending as much time ogling over Sasuke. By the end of the day she had mastered tree walking standing on top of the pole, pleased with herself and what she's done with her chakra control and stamina. The girl, it seemed like, had something to prove, and Kakashi was pleased that she was starting to show a more serious side at last. Team 7 meet with each other and resumed their training when Naruto wasn't with Kimimaro. The trio working as each went on. Sasuke also, it seemed like, had a renewed determination after what the Kaguya had said to him, determined to gain power and get stronger than Naruto. As the days went by the bridge got closer to being completed, and by the end of the 3rd day the bridge was at the halfway point. By then the people of the village started to show life again in their steps and eyes as Tazuna's dream was starting to become a reality. Naruto, whenever he wasn't training, also spent time with Tsunami's son, and although Inari at first wanted nothing to do with him, warmed up to him as he along with the rest of Wave began the process of recovering at long last. Team 7 continued working out and training as Sasuke himself mastered tree walking and all three were now capable of it. Despite Sasuke's insistence that he be taught water walking next since Naruto knew it, Kakashi decided that they had learned what was necessary for now as they had more important things to do. Naruto sparred with Kimimaro as the two used the Heijin barrier jutsu to protect themselves from harming one another as they trained using Shikatsumiku, and Kimimaro teaching him Kenjutsu and different sword styles of fighting. Naruto learning all he could from Kimimaro, who despite breaking into a fit of coughing at times pushed himself beyond his limits to teach his cousin. Naruto learned how to do the dance of the falling star and the dance of the larch abilities during that time period. We're at the halfway point, however I should tell you that Gato and his men are getting upset. He may try something soon enough. Tazuna said to them one night as Team 7 ate dinner. I won't be surprised if he tries to stop us. Will the bridge be completed, grandfather? Inari asked the boys sitting with them for the first time. Indeed it will. This time next week we shall be connected to the mainland and Gato will no longer have any control over us. He said to him. Inari smiled, and nothing made the bridge builder happier than seeing his grandson smile again. We'll stay until it's completed, I'm sure you could use the help. Kakashi said to him. Thank you all of you for what you've done. Tazuna said to him and the others. The next morning Naruto was by himself and training fighting against 50 clones. The Kage Bushins charged him and he shoot out 2 blades and rushed forward as they attacked him. Bringing them up he charged into the fray and connected them at the hilt, forming his trademark weapon, and spun it a vicious circle of death that cut through them as they charged and attacked. Naruto evaded their attacks at him and reaching towards his shirt pulled it down, exposing his chest and stomach. Dance of the Larch. Several bones popped out of his body and starting to spin cut through them as he was protected on all sides, and any who got too close would be cut down and turned into a poof of smoke. Naruto cut them down and saw a final one. Drilling bullets. He shouted and extending his hand fired bones at him and went right through him, and he disappeared along with the rest as he beat them all. "Yeah, I'm getting the hang of doing it," he said, smiling, and disconnecting the weapon put the bones back into his shoulders, pumped a fist into the air. "Just wait till Kimimaro-san sees this, along with everyone else," he said, as he couldn't wait to see the looks on their faces when the dead last had returned and was no longer the loser they thought he was. Done training for the morning, he went to go when his ears heard a grunting sound. Detecting it and his curiosity getting the better of him, he went to see what was the source of it. Heading east and being careful to cover his tracks and be unheard, he tiptoed his way and soon came upon a small training ground that had been recently used. Training dummies were set up and he saw a figure darting past. He looked and saw a brown-haired figure training the figure, going at a fast pace from target to target and throwing something at them. The figure was shirtless and wore a pair of brown pants and sandals, and Naruto saw the remainder of their clothing not far. The figure continued training and Naruto was impressed with the speed the person was capable of, not as fast as Kimimaro, but faster than him and Sasuke he was. The figure there back to Naruto leapt up and threw several objects at a pair of logs, hitting them dead center. The figure landed on the ground and allowed a smile to form, pleased with themselves. "Wow, that was something," Naruto said, and then backhanded himself mentally at what he just did as he gave himself away. The figure turned to face him, revealing a flatless chest and the most feminine face Naruto had ever seen. "Who are you?" the figure asked, although they weren't on guard and seemed curious. My name's Naruto Uzumaki," Naruto said, walking forward, his arms out, meaning he didn't mean any trouble. "I heard you and I stumbled upon you. Sorry if I interrupted you." The brown-haired figure smiled. "No problem, I didn't think someone was going to come upon me training." "Ah, okay," Naruto said, and then stared at their face and then at their flat chest. At their face and their chest. At their chest and their face. Back to their chest and then to their face. "Is there something wrong?" the figure asked. Sorry if I offend you, but are you a boy or a girl?" Naruto said to them. "If you're a girl, you have the flattest body I've ever seen, and not that I'm insulting you or anything, I'm sure you'll develop eventually. But if you're a boy, then I can understand why you was shirtless. Or are you one of those tran?" he said as he stuttered over his words. The figure laughed. "I'm not offended, friend. I have become used to confused looks regarding my appearance and accepted that I am a boy, although most boys do wish I was a girl when they first see me. Haku is my name, Naruto Uzumaki," he said and reached out his hand. "Nice to meet ya," Naruto said, shaking his hand. "What are you doing out here? It's a bit far from Wave for a civilian to be out here." "I'm not a civilian. I live in a small village from here and came here on my boat that I have," Haku said to him. "This place I use as a training ground to protect myself from thieves and bandits. I've been training for over an hour when it got warm and I discarded my clothing," he said, and walking over to his clothes put his upper clothing back on and put his long hair in a different style. "What did you use? I couldn't exactly see what you was using." "Some type of kunai?" "Not exactly, here take a look," Haku said to him, and they walked to the logs he had set up and Haku pulled out several needles from them. "Senbon needles. I train with them. A well-placed throw can immobilize a body part or knock a person unconscious, although I'm not that good with them yet." Naruto, looking at them, thought in the back of his mind and remembered that Zabuza was taken out by a senbon-wielding hunter. But thinking nothing of it, nodded as he examined them. "Judging by your hitai, ain't you are a ninja of the leaf, correct?" Haku asked him. "Huh? Oh yeah I am," Naruto responded. "I've been staying here for a few days with my team." An idea then popped into his head. "Hey Haku, you should go to Konoha and apply there to be a ninja at the academy. I'm sure you'd make an awesome ninja with your speed and precision. I bet you'd be good as a ninja and be genin in no time." Haku smiled and shook his head. "That's a nice offer, Naruto, but I'm afraid I'll have to decline. I have other more pressing things to tend to. I can't become a leaf nin as I have more matters to take care of. My career as a ninja, I'm afraid, won't happen." "Huh, well that sucks," Naruto said, folding his arms across his chest. "Don't worry, not all of us were meant to be shinobi," Haku said to him. The two continued to talk for a couple of hours and Naruto felt as if Haku was the first person around his own age he could call a friend. A shame he'd probably never see him again after they left when the mission was done. The two talked about each other's beliefs and their goals that each other had. Well, it's been nice seeing you, Naruto. But I'm afraid I must go now. Haku said, standing up. Oh yeah, it was nice seeing you, Naruto mentioned and shook his hand again, and Haku started to leave. Maybe we'll see each other again before I go back to Konoha. Haku turned and smiled at him. Perhaps, he said and continued going on. Naruto watched him go and then turned and headed back to Wave. Haku continued walking and the boy went into a defensive walk as he got closer to a cave. He checked to make sure no one had followed him and no one could decipher his tracks and continued his way towards the cave. Haku, a voice said, sensing his approach, and he walked into the cave and kneeled in front of the figure who was on a cot. Where have you been? You're not out this long? Zabuza Momochi, not as dead as many believed him to be, said to the boy and his servant. I am sorry, Zabuza-sama, I got carried away with my training. Haku said to him as he kneeled for forgiveness. No matter, I may not be 100%, but I'm more than capable of handling any stupid scum who comes this way. Zabuza said as Haku had posed as the hunter Nin who had taken him out days ago. What he had done was made it look like he had killed him, when in fact he had knocked him out into a coma with his senbon, as in truth he was a powerful ninja who served only Zabuza, his master. Knocking him out under the guise of killing him, he had taken the man to recover, which would take a week for him. Zabuza-sama, if we try again, what about the Kaguya? Want me to deal with him if he appears? Haku asked, referring to the white-haired figure who had showed up. No, I'll handle him after I've recovered. Although, I have to admit he does seem similar. Haku nodded as when he say him he too remembered encountering a young Kaguya child in his youth with Zabuza shortly after he joined him and swore servitude. Besides, a Kaguya, especially the last of them, would fetch big bucks. The Kaguya had a bounty on their heads after what happened. 300,000 ryo for finding and killing one the Mizukage offered. That kind of money ain't exactly pocket change. Even today we'd still get a large sum if we bring his corpse in. With that and the money Gato will pay us, all have secured enough funds to start another coup in Kirigakure. Haku nodded as the two were hired assassins by Gato and their target the bridge builder. Get ready, Haku, in 3 days I'll be fully healed. And on the 4th day, he then reached over and pulled up his Zanbato blade, the weapon having gotten hundreds of lives ended on it. We attack. Naruto Uzumaki sat down in the middle of a field in a meditative state, trying to put his mind in a blank state so he could focus. The boy was done training for the day and they wouldn't be staying much longer in Wave as Tazuna and his men were nearing the end of the bridge which would connect Wave to the mainland and restore its economy. The boy had been busy training with his cousin Kimimaro and also with helping out with the village, which were happy to have his support and the use of his kage bushin. That had made him glad, seeing they was actually glad to have him around. This treatment he was getting was preferably to the one he usually got and received, as the people appreciated him helping out. He went over the training he had done recently with his cousin, learning a couple of his moves and jutsus that he called dances. Learning the style of fighting, as he had chastised his form and movements as sloppy and mediocre, telling him that a warrior's stance showed his strengths and weaknesses with his position and he could be easily defeated if not in a proper stance. So far there had been little trouble with the construction of the bridge as they had been guarding it and the workers. But Tazuna had told them to stay cautious as Gato and his men would do anything to stop them from building the bridge and releasing his hold on the island. Getting up, he decided to head into the town to see if anything was up. Elsewhere, Kimimaro was by himself, the Kaguya, thinking of past events. The dream vessel, thinking of what had happened in his life. Growing up amongst his clan and being locked up by his father. I will not suffer the same death that I gave my own father, the harsh man said as he shoved the 8-year-old into the cell and slammed the door shut, locking it. The 8-year-old Kimimaro could only watch on, tears in his eyes, as his father left him in the dark room by himself. The cruel head of the clan, fearing he'd suffer the same fate that the boy's grandfather had. Kimimaro, back in the present, hated the man. He hated the bastard as to what he did to them all. Ruining the clan and causing them all to be wiped out except for himself. Preventing his mother from seeing him and watching as he forced him to kill against his will. Blood on his hands by the time he was already 4. His worthless father using him as nothing more than a weapon, an unthinking tool to be discarded when there was no more use of it. I have sired not a warrior, but a monster. Those words brought a scowl to his face as his father hated him, hated that he would become too powerful and beyond his control, as the Kekkei Genkai he had was stronger than any of the past previous users. His own father had Shikatsumiku as well, but by the time he was 7 he was already capable of more than what he was able to do. Naruto as well could match his given the Kyuubi's power he had. Maybe even exceed his own ability and strength if he trained enough. So you're one of them, a voice said, and he turned his head and saw being accompanied by a group of armed men, 2 of them more well equipped than the rest, an old man in a business suit and black glasses. The old man walked towards him, a dark smile on his face. I have a proposition for you, boy, the man said to him. I am Gato, founder and owner of Gato Shipping Company. You came with that idiot Tazuna, right? He asked him. How do you like to work for me? Does that idiot really think things will change if he builds that stupid bridge? He threatens my business and I could lose millions if he completes it. My offer is that you work for me from now on. I assure you that I'll make it worth your while. He said, grinning evilly. Kill the fool and those other meddling insects and you'll be rewarded handsomely. He said, and mentioned to one of his men, who tossed a suitcase at him which landed at his feet. It busted open and Kimimaro saw several $1,000s of Ryo stuffed into it. Do that and it's yours, and if it's not suitable then I can easily offer more. Everyone has a price, right? Gato said to him. Kill them all and you'll be rewarded with money and riches beyond your wildest dreams, and I'll hire you to do some more jobs for me against those who owe me money. Money is what makes the world work after all. Kimimaro didn't say anything as he stared at the wretched man who thought he could buy him off. To think that this fool thought he could have him murder his kin. Even if he wasn't related to Naruto, he wouldn't accept his offer. The thought of working for such a disgusting and wretched man who had no power beyond that stuffed into his coffers made him sick to his stomach. So what do you say? Do you accept my offer of employment? Gato asked him again. No. What? He shouted, not used to being turned down. I refuse to lower myself to working with worthless scum who hide behind others and have no strength of their own. Kimimaro said to him, who was fuming. Kill him, he ordered, and some of his men stepped forward raising their weapons. When they neared him, in the blink of an eye Kimimaro raised his hands up and 2 bones shot out of his wrists and into the throats of them. Think of it like the double hidden blade. The 2 fell backwards dead, a large open wound in their throats. What devilry is this? Gato shouted, taking a step back at what he just did as Kimimaro retracted them back into his skin. His men also seemed stunned and no longer interested in fighting him with how he killed them so easily. Go or you die next, Kimimaro said to him, tossing the briefcase back at him, and the businessman was smart enough to know he was outmatched here. He backed away with his men, a bit disturbed what he just saw, but regained his composure. HMPH, you'll pay for this, you stupid boy. No one turns down Gato and lives. No one. He snarled and turned and left with his men. Kimimaro watched them go, thinking it pointless, the entire thing. The Kaguya are brutal, ruthless, merciless, and a lot of other things. Once the backbone of Mist's army, they are now reduced to one. Zabuza Momochi said to Haku as the 2 had watched it from afar. I'm not surprised he refused Gato's offer though. That fool Kamaru Kaguya, the last head of that crazy clan, drove the clan to extinction with what he did. This one must have fled the battle and survived. To think that such a prize would be found here in this lousy place. If I had known I'd meet him again and he'd be in my way, I would have killed him back when he was a kid. He said as he knew that the Kaguya they had seen years ago as a young child was the same one now, all grown up. He is powerful though, but no match for you, Zabuza-sama. Haku said to him, his face covered by a mask. He's too gentle. He may have the killing instinct to be an assassin, but I can tell his heart isn't in it. If he does show up when we attack, I'll take care of him. He'll ill as well by the look of it, so all I gotta do is wait until he slips up and then I'll take his head. The swordsman said, remembering how in the first battle Kimimaro had fallen ill and nearly was killed at his hands if not for the blonde kid interfering. Though if Gato thinks about hiring other work to steal our money, he's going to find out the hard way why I'm nicknamed the Demon of Mist. He said, and his eyes narrowed in anger at what he had seen him try to do. Haku looked at him as the 2 assassins prepared to make their move, as he was almost 100%. The next day they would attack and kill Tazuna and stop the building of the bridge. Once Gato pays us and we bring in the Kaguya's body for the bounty, I'll have enough funds to start another coup in Mist. This time I'm taking over, Zabuza said as he needed funds and money in order for his plan to take over Mist work. planning on taking over and ruling his home village, which had turned him into the butcher he was today. "Let's go," he ordered, and the two hastily left, heading back to their hiding spot. "But sensei, I want to learn water walking," Sasuke said in protest to the lazy ninja who was seated on a bench reading his favorite book. "You're not ready to learn that just yet, Sasuke," Kakashi said, not looking at him as he flipped the page. "But I've already done tree walking, I should master that as well," Sasuke said angrily at his teacher. "You're going to exhaust yourself and make yourself bedridden if you keep this up," Kakashi responded, still reading his book. "Why are you preventing me from learning it?" "I'm not preventing you from doing anything. Right now you're not skilled enough to learn how to walk on water," he replied. Sasuke glared angrily at him, upset that Kakashi wouldn't teach him how to walk on water. He'd had gotten tree walking down, but he wanted more. Learning that Naruto knew how to do it made him angry that the dead last fool knew something he didn't, and the words he and his trainer had said to him had made him mad that they had talked to him like that. Angry that they had talked him down and called him out. The Uchiha was not used to that kind of treatment they had given him. Mad that Naruto was getting special treatment and learning things he should already know, Sasuke did not want to be one-upped by him. Also, a part of him was upset that he hadn't activated his bloodline by now and obtained the Sharingan. The Sharingan was the pride of the Uchiha family and clan, and Sasuke thought that his should have been obtained by now so he could harness its power and control. That was what he needed if he ever wanted to avenge his family's wrongful deaths. He should have had it by now, he believed, but still it eluded him. "All of you are capable of walking on trees now, that's enough for you to know for now. Naruto is capable of walking on water. Why can't I as well? There are more important things for you to do now than trying to learn that," he replied. Sasuke glared at him angrily and turned and left. Kakashi only shrugged as he watched him go and resumed reading. Naruto was at the construction site with Tazuna and the others, helping them out by mass-producing dozens of clones to help with the construction and make it go faster. 3 more days, at the rate it'll be 3 days, and then it'll be finished, the bridge builder told his men. Wave will finally be connected to the mainland. The workers cheered as they were nearing their goal. Naruto, watching on, looked over and saw the man's grandson looking on as well, Inari having watched them work as the boy was starting to open up. All of Wave, it seemed like, was getting better as the citizens of the place were finally recovering. He looked over and saw Sakura there as well, as the two were on guard duty for their shift. The pink-haired girl hadn't said anything to him lately, and it didn't bother him as he could tell that she was upset over what he had said to her before, but he wasn't letting it bother him. Having learned to ignore what people say about him, he had noticed a few of her looks recently towards him as if she was wanting to say something or tell him about something, but she hadn't spoken to him. "Naruto, Sakura, you can go meet up with the others now, we're done for the day today," Tazuna called out to them as the workers began to leave the bridge. "Head home and I'll see you both later along with the others." The two left, and as they went to go, Naruto saw a group of men appear in front of them. He instantly recognized them as the thugs who tried to intimidate him and Kimimaro the day before. "What are you doing blocking our path?" Sakura said, not understanding. Naruto, however, could tell that they wanted payback for what happened earlier. "You brats got a lot of nerve with what you're doing," one said to them. "Gado-sama is going to make you all pay for what you've done. The old geezer's going to get his as well soon enough. Move out of our way, we don't want any trouble with you," Naruto said, trying to avoid a fight with them. He could scare them off with the Kage Bushin, but he didn't want to cause any ruckus. "Too bad, you owe us after what that other punk did, and he's not here to save your ass now, right, Kusabi?" a second one said to a man who had an spear. "Yeah. Unless you give us your money right now that you stole from us, we're going to make an example out of both of you." Sakura looked around fearfully as they were surrounded as more men appeared from behind, blocking their path. Naruto mentioned for her to keep calm. "Mommy ain't here to save you now, you little brat. Then again, I bet that cheap hooker dropped you off the day you was born," one said, and the group began laughing at Naruto. The fools continued to laugh, unaware that they had just struck a nerve. "What did you say?" Naruto snarled suddenly, and the group stopped and saw that Naruto had a look of murder on his face. Sakura, looking on, felt as if something terrible was about to happen, as for a moment she swore Naruto's eyes turned a blood red. The thugs had stopped laughing as they backed up a bit, not understanding what was going on. Naruto felt the bones in his arms starting to stick out as he was ready to pull them out and slaughter them over what he said, and he was subconsciously aware of a dark power in him waking up as if an evil spirit was awakening inside of him. But before he could make them pay, a blur appeared and knocked them all out with precise blows to the nerves and neck area. Kakashi-sensei, Sakura shouted as the copy nin had appeared in front of them, having knocked out the thugs. Are you all right? He asked them as he had sensed trouble from afar. He had expected something would happen, and he felt the rage that was inside Naruto growing. Naruto, calm down, he said as the boy glared at the bodies, and it was taking everything he had from pummeling them to death. These are just bullies, and will no longer harm you. Ignore their words, as anger is a ninja's greatest enemy. Even if they call the woman who gave you life a whore. Naruto asked snidely, angry over what they just said. If Kakashi hadn't knocked them out, he would have killed them. Kakashi closed his eye and patted the top of his head. It's all right, kiddo, let it go. Let's head to the house, he said, and took them back to the house. It was good he had shown up. If he hadn't, Naruto would have murdered them, and with the rage he was sensing from the boy, it was possible he may have awakened the beast that was inside of him that had been sealed into him. The Kyuubi. The next day. Is this where that bastard has run off to? The red-headed Kunoichi, wearing an outfit with a purple bow around her waist, said to herself as she saw the bridge in the distance. What the hell is that idiot doing all the way out here? Tayuya, the sound nin of the North Gate, had been looking for her missing comrade, wondering where he had been going. After he had left again, her curiosity had gotten the better of her after a couple of days. Just where had he been going off to for so many days at a time? If their master had returned from his meeting in Suna with the Kekkei and discovered he had been going off like this with the illness he would be pissed and would punish her and the other members of the Sound Five. Saken, his brother, Kidomaru, and Jirobo had stopped caring after he left again, but she knew something was up. She had left Otto as well and managed to pick up his still warm tracks. The Kaguya she knew was not 100%, so she was able to figure out where he was going. Surprisingly enough, this had led her near Konoha, which was pretty much the one place Orochimaru didn't want any of them going to. She didn't sense his presence there and picked up more of his tracks and kept going, heading away from the Leaf Village. What's the asshole doing here of all places? She questioned, as it didn't make any sense for him to come so far out. Unless there was some sort of fish here he fancied, but she doubted it. She looked out to the distance and saw the construction of what looked like a bridge being built. She could easily sense him there as he was at the place. Guess I'm going to have to find him and figure out what's going on. Knowing my damn luck he's out cold in the street somewhere, and I'll have to drag his carcass back to Otogakure. She mumbled to herself, wondering why it was always her who had to put up with it when things like this happened, as she got ready to go. Hey sexy, wanna have a good time? A voice called out, and she turned her head and saw a group of men who served as extra hired muscle. You look like you know how to give people fun, one said to her, and his companions laughed. Tayuya glared at them as they made suggestive comments towards her, but she soon grinned and pulled out her flute and brought it up to her lips and began playing a tune on it. To the bandits' surprise, 3 large monkey-like beasts covered in bandages appeared in front of them, and they all wielded giant kanabos. Kill them, she ordered. Loud screams then filled the area. Later on, Kakashi was walking with Tazuna and Sakura on the bridge when they suddenly heard screams of agony and death. What the? Who's attacking my men? Tazuna shouted, turning around as he heard the screams of horror. Kakashi narrowed his eye. Gato has made his move, he said, and they quickly went to head back towards where the attack was happening. Several slain bodies were on the bridge they saw, and they made it just in time to see a man be impaled through the stomach and tossed off the blade. Kakashi instantly recognized the attacker. Zabuza, he said, and the missing nin of mist raised his head and grinned underneath his bandages. Surprised to see me? He asked mockingly, no longer wearing his flak jacket and vest. I thought you were dead. Tazuna shouted in disbelief at the demon of mist in front of him. He looks pretty alive to me, Kakashi said as he got into a fighting stance. This time you will die at my hands. Zabuza shouted, and doing hand symbols covered the entire area in mist and faded into it, disappearing from view. Stay near to me, Kakashi said to the others, and went on guard, knowing that he could appear and kill him, Tazuna, or Sakura at any given moment. Sasuke had saw the mist form around the bridge where the others was at and immediately did a mad dash towards it, seeing that something was up. He neared the empty bridge and started to make his way forward when a figure in brown and green appeared wearing a white mask with red on it and the symbol of Kirigakure on it. You're that hunter Nin from before," Sasuke said, not understanding as he recognized him even though his face was covered by the mask he wore the first time he had seen him nearly a week ago. "Do you really think that?" the ninja said and suddenly threw something right at him. Sasuke brought his hands up to defend himself. Something sticked into his arms and he saw several small needles sticking into it. "Senbon?" he asked himself but soon smirked. "You'll need more than needles to stop me. I know that to defeat an Uchiha, I'll have to counter your bloodline with my own." The figure responded and suddenly Sasuke was surrounded on all sides by several mirrors made out of ice in the front and the back and one on the top as well. The ninja appeared in one of them and threw several senbon at him which he narrowly dodged. The figure reappeared in another one and threw more at Sasuke as he had trapped him in his crystal ice mirrors. Naruto was walking in the village when he heard sounds. He ran and soon came to Tsunami's house and saw her and Inari being threatened by two of Gato's men. The men threatening to harm them for her father daring to oppose Gato. The sight angered Naruto and forming two bone swords he called out to them getting their attention. "You like picking on those smaller than you? I'm smaller, why don't you try picking on me?" he taunted them. The two pulled out their swords and charged him planning on cutting him down. Naruto was ready and blocked their swings and attacks and parried their blows expertly as he fought a defensive battle. The two attacked at the same time and he blocked and countered their attacks. Both went up high for a devastating chop at his chest and he blocked it and kicked at them. The two then charged and came at him from the side and he was ready for them. They attacked meaning to run him through and he blocked both their attacks and meant to overpower him. The three struggled when Naruto managed to outmuscle them both and drove them back causing them to lose their footing. The two regrouped and charged him when Naruto leapt right over and somersaulted past them putting them behind him and delivered two precise blows to their backs knocking them out from the blow. "Are you okay?" Naruto asked Tsunami and Inari. "We're a bit shaken up but other than that we're fine," Tsunami replied thanking him. "These two are Gato's men," Naruto said as he tied them up. "Tsunami, I think your pops is in danger. You two get somewhere safe, I'm going to find him and the others. Be careful both of you," he told them and went into a run knowing that if they had been threatened just now, then that means the others likely were in trouble as well. Gold will be paid in full to the one who kills this fool. Gato the businessman shouted to the group as they surrounded Kimimaro on the outskirts of Wave. "Go now and claim your prize," he ordered and many of the mercenaries charged the Kaguya. Gato's plan was a three-part process. His hired men would attack Kimimaro while his bodyguards got Dazuna's daughter and grandchild and held them hostage. Then after Zabuza had killed the old man along with all the Wokers, the final part of his plan would be put into place. He didn't have to attack Kimimaro but the businessman was furious that he had rejected his offer and meant to make him pay with his life for refusing him. "The rest of you, come with me," he ordered his remaining men who went with him not even bothering to stay and watch. Kimimaro pulled out a bone sword as he was surrounded on all sides by dozens of men. But if Kimimaro showed any sign of worry or concern he did not show it. In fact he was smiling as they rushed and attacked him. "What the hell is going on? Is it riot day or something?" Tayuya shouted as she had finally made it to the village and wasn't understanding what was going on. It seemed as if all the people here had gone crazy. Of all the places to go the idiot went to the one that's filled with lunatics? She said wondering what was going on. "Give me your money or else." A man shouted at her and she responded by angrily ramming a kunai into his chest. The people of this place she saw were gathering, some of them getting any weapon they could use, even gardening and construction tools. Rakes, hammers, shovels, anything that could be used to fight with they was getting. "We're not taking it anymore. We're gonna stand up and fight." A man shouted and the group cheered as they began fighting back against other men and running them out of the village. Tayuya leapt onto a rooftop and overlooked the scenery, not understanding what was going on. She looked out and saw the bridge that was covered in a mist as well as what looked like a dome of ice as well. "What the hell's going on in this crazy place?" she said to herself as she looked on. Naruto, making it to the bridge, saw the ice like mirrors there and could hear the sound of battle. Knowing that something was happening, he then made his way towards it. "Fire release. Great fireball." Sasuke shouted, doing hand symbols and performing the jutsu, fired a large fireball from his mouth at the ice mirrors, but like before did little damage to them, melting them only a little. That was his most powerful fire jutsu, the one the Uchihas used to prove they had come of age, and despite melting some of the ice did as much damage as his other fireballs. "It is hopeless," the masked ninja said to him and threw more senbon at him, which he narrowly dodged. "Surrender and I shall spare you, continue and your clan shall end this." Crash. "What the?" the ninja shouted as one of his mirrors shouted, and they both saw a blonde-haired figure crashing through one of the mirrors, having shattered it with a powerful blow from his sword he had made. He flew into the area and landed in the center next to Sasuke. "Is the party still going on?" Naruto asked, having made his way through, pouring all of his chakra into his attack to break through. The masked figure recognized the boy and winced, having not wanted to fight him but knew this could happen. "I'll give you both one final chance, leave now," he said, and all but one mirror disappeared with him in it. "Go and your lives will be spared. Stay and you leave me no choice but to end your life. Zabuza will kill you both even if you somehow manage to defeat me. Sorry buddy, but you endanger all of us by working with him and that scumbag Gato." "I don't have any plan on retreating today," Naruto said to him. "You got a bloodline, don't you? That's all you was able to do this?" "That is correct. My bloodline gives me the ability to combine water and air to form ice. Something which I was despised for as a child growing up," he responded, slowly remembering his father's outburst. "I doubt my clones would be able to penetrate your mirrors, and you look pretty tough." "My Kage Bushin won't cut it," Naruto said, but then smiled. "I guess I gotta fight you on your equal power. Kekkei Genkai against Kekkei Genkai. You possess a bloodline as well?" the figure asked him, and Sasuke couldn't believe what he just said. He's bluffing. There's no way Naruto could have a bloodline, he thought to himself, thinking he was making tall tales. It was impossible for him to have a Kekkei Genkai. "Yeah, I do. The Uzumaki bloodline, that which my cousin also possesses, as well as he can use it as well." "I see you will not run, then you leave me no choice. Bloodline or not, I will defeat you here," he said, and the ice mirrors formed around them all again. "It's the first time I've shown this to others, so here goes. The power of Shikatsumiku that my clan long ago possessed," Naruto said, and reached into his shoulder and, concentrating, pulled out a 2.5-foot long bone which turned into a sword. Grabbing it, he combined it with his other sword and connected them at the hilt into a 5-foot long sword. Spinning it overhead, he then got into a stance and charged, preparing to do battle with the ninja. Naruto spun the bone swords around and deflected the multiple senbon thrown at him by the hunter ninja, using his blades to deflect his fast attacks and prevent the needles from hitting him. The two swords he had pulled out prevented any object from touching his body. The ninja disappeared into the ice mirrors and reappeared elsewhere in another, throwing dozens of senbon at him. Naruto spun and deflected them with his swords as he evaded the attacks. One narrowly came close to hitting his eye, but it was blocked by him bringing his right sword up to deflect it. He then brought the two blades together and combined both of them at the hilt, turning them into a 5-foot long double-bladed sword. Twirling it overhead, he got ready to fight again and evaded the attacks. "You are skilled, there is little doubt to that. But I can detect flaws in your fighting style," the ninja said to him from a mirror. "But how long can you continue dodging? It won't be long until you tire out and find my needles embedded in your throat." "Hey, don't worry about me, I got plenty of stamina," Naruto replied with a smirk. "You should be more concerned with yourself instead. Here's something I've been wanting to try," he said, and suddenly several small bones sprouted out of his left and right arm. "Dance of spikes," he shouted, and doing the new move he created, spun and fired them into the ice mirrors. They landed into the mirrors, embedding themselves and leaving noticeable cracks as well in them. "Impressive, but not enough," the ninja said, and the cracks were restored by his own Kekkei Genkai. Sasuke, looking on, was in disbelief. How could Naruto of all people have a bloodline? It didn't make any sense. How was it that he had a bloodline? All this time Naruto had a Kekkei Genkai of his very own that no one even knew about it. Naruto he had seen was nothing but a fool who was lucky to graduate, yet here and now he was showing a bloodline as well as skill and abilities he had never seen before. And the bloodline was unlike anything Sasuke had ever seen or heard, as he was using his own bones and body as a weapon to fight with. It was nothing like the Hyuga, the Aburame, the Nara, or even the Uchiha clan's bloodline. He watched as Naruto deflected an attack with his swords. A bitter feeling starting to grow within him over the fact that a boy who had graduated last had a hidden bloodline and that he still was yet to harness his own Kekkei Genkai, while Naruto seemed to show skill with his holding his own against an opponent who Sasuke hadn't even managed to land a blow onto. Naruto leapt high, avoiding a pair of needles thrown at him and bringing his swords up through them into the ice mirror, leaving a crack in it. Focusing his chakra, he reached towards his knee and, like Kimimaro did before, pulled out a large heavy 3-foot-long bone which took the shape of a kanabo. Letting out a battle cry, he charged the mirror and swung the heavy club into the mirror. Crack! Large cracks appeared in the mirror from the brute force of the attack. Although his face was hidden, Naruto could tell the hunter nin was surprised at what he had just done, as he did not expect him to damage his mirror. He swung the kanabo again and this time shattered the mirror into 4 pieces of ice, breaking it. "Get out of here, Sasuke," Naruto said to him, surprising Sasuke. "Go find the others. I'll take care of this." "What?" Sasuke said. "You heard me, find the others and help them out," Naruto responded as he had created an opening for him to escape. "I'll deal with this guy. Now go, will you?" Sasuke glared at him. "He thinks I can't handle this? That I'm a weakling? Come on, go before it Naruto started to say, but the ice mirror he had broken was rebuilt and reformed and was solid as ever. "Damn it," he shouted and turned and saw the hunter nin. "Perhaps I underestimated you. I shall not make that mistake again," the ninja said, and disappeared into another mirror and reappeared, going and throwing senbon twice as fast as he had previously done at them, this time looking like little more than a blur appearing in multiple mirrors at once. Naruto cursed under his breath as he avoided the now faster than before senbon and pulled out 2 swords again from his arms. The ninja was going faster than he had been before, making him that much more dangerous. "I will defeat this foe," Sasuke said suddenly and stood in front of him. "I will prove that I am the stronger, that I'm a true prodigy." "Well, thanks to your damn pride," Naruto dryly said to him from behind. "I gotta spend my energy and chakra making sure nothing happens to you while I'm fighting this guy. You may have a bloodline no one knew about, but I'll be the one who finishes this fight," Sasuke said, not looking at him. He then rushed forward and did several hand symbols. "Multi-fireball jutsu," he shouted and fired several fireballs that hit the mirrors, but like before with his previous attempts did little damage to them. The hunter nin threw dozens of senbon at them in retaliation, and Naruto felt a pair hit him in the arm. Grimacing to himself, he leapt out of the way of several more thrown at him as the hunter nin disappeared into another mirror and threw even more at him and Sasuke. Naruto managed to deflect them with his swords, but knew that if this kept up, with him having to defend himself from the attacks as well as Sasuke recklessly endangering himself, he'd be in trouble. Elsewhere, Kakashi ducked under the beheading swing of Zabuza Momochi's Zanbato and backflipped, and while in midair produced several shuriken and threw them right at Zabuza. They hit him, but he then turned into a puddle of water. "Mizu Bushin," Kakashi said dryly when he was impaled by behind by the real Zabuza, but saw to his surprise the copy nin turn into a puddle of water. He was then kicked in the face by the real Kakashi. "I copied that trick from you after our last battle," he said to Zabuza, who glared at him. Zabuza responded by doing hand seals. "Kirigakure number jutsu," he shouted, and a thick mist surrounded the area and he disappeared into it. Kakashi went on guard, remembering that this was how he attempted to ambush them before. He looked back at Sakura and Tazuna, checking on them as he was Zabuza's target. The demon of the mist was determined to kill Tazuna, and Kakashi was just as determined to stop him. Zabuza emerged swinging his heavy blade, and Kakashi leapt up into the air to avoid it. He then started doing hand symbols, and many kunai appeared in front of him and flew right at Zabuza, who swung his blade at them to deflect them. To everyone except Kakashi's surprise, the kunai exploded on contact, creating a small explosion, injuring and knocking back Zabuza, who did not expect that. The leaf Jonin landed on the bridge. These are different from regular kunai. Black powder similar to that used in explosive tags is put in them by drilling a small hole and pouring it into the kunai. Then when I launched them at you, I secretly used a small spark to set the powder off inside them. By the time they reached you, they were ready to go off and explode. A new weapon the leaf has been working on. Zabuza glared at him, fury in his eyes, and snarled as he pulled himself forward. He slammed his weapon down onto the bridge and began doing hand symbols of his own. "Water bullet jutsu," He shouted and fired multiple small bullets of water at Kakashi, who leapt out of the way, and they hit the side of the bridge and caused small damage to it. Zabuza then began doing more hand symbols. Die, water style. Water dragon jutsu. He shouted and fired the jutsu he used against Kimimaro at him. Kakashi leapt out of the way in the nick of time, and it slammed into the side of the bridge, destroying a small part of the side due to the velocity and impact. Ah, Kakashi, be careful. If the bridge is destroyed, then all our efforts will be in vain. Tazuna shouted as he couldn't stand the thought of it being destroyed. Kakashi nodded at him, understanding. Zabuza swung at him, and Kakashi avoided the swing and decked him across the face. Zabuza recovered and snapped his head forward and head-butted him. That stunned Kakashi, rearing him backwards, and Zabuza went to run him through. At the last second, Kakashi leapt up doing the splits in midair and then landed on Zabuza's blade with precise dexterity and balance, using chakra to staying on the flat side of the weapon to avoid being cut. He then kicked him in the head and leapt off. Damn you! Zabuza shouted murder in his eyes and backed into the mist again. Kakashi went on guard, knowing he was in there plotting something. Elsewhere, the sound Kunoichi Tayuya was confused as to what was going on. She had followed her companion's tracks from Konoha, wondering where the hell he had gone off to, and now found herself in the middle of what looked like an all-out war going on between the idiots of this place in her eyes. Leaping on top of a roof, she scanned the area as fighting broke out between the people of the village. Looking around the chaotic scene, just wondering what the hell was going on. Of all the places that idiot could go, he went here? She muttered as she looked around the horizon. Kill these maggots for God-Osama. One of the thugs shouted, and she recognized that name. That was the name of the guy who tried to rip off her master with a false deal when he was in fact stealing from the Sound Village over a year ago. Needless to say, the snake did not approve of being double-crossed, and the businessman had narrowly escaped with his life and was lucky the Sanin had more important matters to attend to than dealing with a low-life piece of shit in her eyes. She watched as the groups continued fighting one another, and the redhead knew something was up. He was here, she knew that, but what was he doing here in all places? And how come his earlier tracks lead to Konoha, the Hidden Leaf Village? Frowning, Tayuya looked around and leapt down, walking nonchalantly through the chaotic scene, paying no attention at all the fighting going or the fact that the villagers of the town were starting to overpower the brigands and drive them out. She sensed his presence nearby, and she followed it, feeling faintly his chakra. Her eyes then widened when she came upon the sight. Dozens of bodies were sprawled on the ground. Dead and lifeless, there was at least 50 of them, she guesses. They all seemed to be like those guys back in the village too, as she saw the dead men. Arg, a voice said, and she lifted her head up and saw not far away a bone get his throat slit by a bone-like sword. He was held up by one arm and after being killed was dropped to the ground. She saw the man's killer, who retracted sword back into his forearm. Holy, was all she could say, and the figure lifted his head and saw her standing stunned at what she just witnessed. A scowl formed on his face seeing her. What are you doing here? Kimimaro asked angrily upon seeing her there. The hell? What are you doing here? She snapped back, getting some of her posture and composure back. You've been disappearing for days at a time, and here you are in the armpit of the world killing some scumbags? You couldn't find some. Quiet, he said to her, catching her off guard. What I do with my business is none of your concern. Go now. I make it my business if it could end in my death, you retard. She shouted at him. Here you are in the middle of nowhere and you look even worse than usual. If you died out here, he's going to be pissed off and will kill me as well for not looking after your worthless ass. Why the hell are you here anyway? It's none of your concern, he said coldly and wiped some blood, that of an enemy, off his face. I wouldn't have come here to this place if I had had the choice. Tayuya looked a bit confused upon hearing that. Had the choice? What, you got a lady friend here or something? She asked with a smug grin, and he glared at her. Let's get out of this damn place, she said, and turned to leave. Kimimaro passed her, much to her surprise, and saw him heading towards the village. Go back to Otogakure, he ordered her. If he perceives me to be useless, then I shall show him that I cannot be discarded, he said, and then coughed. Go now. He then left the place, heading towards the village. Tayuya watched him go. Even with one foot starting to go in the grave, the teen was still pushing himself. That dumbass, better go see what the hell he's babbling about, she said, and made her way as well. Meanwhile, Naruto and Haku were still engaged in battle with the masked nin who hurled dozens of senbon at them, and the two boys narrowly deflected and dodged the attacks. "I do not need your help to win this battle, Naruto," Sasuke said to him and threw several kunai which did little damage to a mirror. "Keep telling yourself that," Naruto muttered in response and deflected the senbon. He then did hand symbols, Kage Bushin. He shouted and created 10 clones. As one they each pulled out an explosive tag and lighting them attached a kunai into it and threw the 10 tags at the mirrors. "Brace yourself," Naruto shouted, ready for the explosion. The hunter nin teleported to the top mirror covering the dome to avoid the blast. The tags went off, creating a decent-sized blast that made the two lose their balance. When the smoke cleared, Naruto saw to his disappointment that they hadn't done as much damage as he had hoped they would, as although they were several cracks in them, there was no serious damage done to them. "Damn, and those were all the explosion tags I had," Naruto said to himself. He then deflected a senbon thrown at him by the hunter nin. The masked ninja suddenly stopped and appeared in one mirror in front of them. He began doing a series of hand symbols. "It's time I finish this." "Oh," Naruto said, feeling as if something was about to happen. "Take this, Ice Saintly, freezing wave." The figure shouted and fired from the mirror a large wave of deep blue chakra at them. Naruto saw the floor turning to ice and guessed what it would do to them. "Crap, J jump," Naruto shouted, and they leapt up just in the nick of time. Naruto felt a surge go throughout his right foot as it got him barely in the leg and hissed as he felt it go numb. They landed on the ground and Naruto checked his leg and rubbed it, trying to get feeling back into the body part. It was covered in a layer of thin ice and he rubbed it, trying to make it go away. "I will give you one last chance," the hunter nin said, standing before them in a mirror. "If you leave, I will spare you and let you live. I do not like killing, but you leave me no choice at this rate. Your stubbornness and your pride will be the downfall of both of you if you do not leave," he said to them. Sasuke glared at him and did hand symbols and cast another fireball at him. Like before though, it did little damage to the mirror. "You have made your choice then," the ninja said, and Naruto detected sadness in the person's voice. "Then you leave me no choice," he said, and began doing a long series of hand symbols. The two immediately went on guard, sensing that it was going to be big whatever he was planning. "Ice style. Giant freezing wave," the ninja shouted, and like before sent a wave at them. But this one was much larger and appeared much more powerful. Naruto and Sasuke's eyes widened in shock at what they saw in front of them, approaching them both. It was slower than the previous attack but far more dangerous. That's gotta be at least a upper B-class jutsu, maybe even a class. Sasuke shouted, rare fear and shock in his eyes as they saw it approach them, and this time they couldn't jump over this one. Naruto looked around for any chance at escape but couldn't due to the mirrors. There was no way out as they blocked all paths. The mirrors? An idea then sprung into his head. If they were capable of walking on trees, then why not ice as well? "Sasuke, run up." "What?" Sasuke shouted, looking at him as if he'd gone mad. "Go up the ice. Use your chakra to stick to the ice. Just do what you do with tree walking," he shouted at him. The two ran towards the ice and, placing chakra to their feet, placed them on the ice and then started to walk up it. Naruto grinned as his idea worked, and they made their way to the top out of reach of the wave as it passed underneath them. The two, their feet clinging to the ice, watched as it went underneath them. "Yes, he can't get us with it up here," Naruto said, grinning. Like they had done with tree walking, they had managed to stick to the ice. It was more difficult due to the different surface, but they had done it. He then heard a grunting sound and looked at Sasuke, who was struggling to stay on. Sasuke was having more difficulty since Naruto had had more experience doing it. Sasuke's feet suddenly gave out and he fell despite Naruto's attempt to grab him into the wave as it ended. "Damn!" Naruto shouted and leapt down after it passed. He landed on the bridge and looked around and noticed the mirrors disappearing and the hunter nin appearing and looking to be exhausted, as if that attack had taken everything out of him. He looked and saw frozen in ice Sasuke. He ran up to the frozen ninja and checked him. "Damn it, Sasuke, if you die I'll kill you," he muttered and formed a bone sword. He checked back on the hunter nin and saw him not doing anything. He may not like Sasuke, but he wouldn't let a person die even if he disliked him. He stabbed the sword into the ice, trying to break through it. He pulled it out and did it again and again, trying to cut through the ice. Sasuke, if he was lucky, was still alive for a little while longer before the coldness numbed him and rendered him unconscious. There we go, Naruto said as he created a small hole and saw that he had reached Sasuke's chest, enough to get him some air. Carefully working, he started to free him. As he did it, he was unaware that Sasuke's eyes had started to turn from their regular blue into a red with a tome appearing in them. Naruto then saw to his surprise Sasuke start to form a fist and sat up and broke free of the remaining ice that covered his body. Sasuke then started to cough as fresh air entered his lungs. Getting on all fours, he continued to cough when he saw his reflection in a piece of ice that Naruto had broken off. He gasped in shock at what he saw and did not believe what he had seen. "Yes," he said, knowing what this meant. Yes, I've done it, I've finally obtained it," he shouted. "The Sharingan, I finally have it," he exclaimed as he finally obtained his clan's bloodline, which only activated the first time when a person was in a life or death situation. "Now I am finally one step closer to fulfilling my goal," he said and stood up, but still suffering from the effects of the attack, fell to one knee. "No, I won't be stopped here," he said and forced himself back up, his eyes glowing with the Sharingan. But even though he was determined to continue, he was still weak after surviving it. "I'm out of chakra. That jutsu took everything out of me," the hunter Nin thought to himself. "I can't form my ice mirrors after that jutsu." The fact that Naruto managed to find a way to get out of the way surprised me. No one's ever done that before. He's really something. I can't win. No, I must win. For Zabuza-sama's sake I will win. The ninja, gathering his last ounces of energy and chakra, charged Naruto from behind. Naruto saw it and leapt out of the way. He formed a bone sword and held it out. The ninja threw Senbon at him, but Naruto easily deflected it with no trouble. The hunter threw shuriken, but Naruto deflected it again. "It's over, man," Naruto said as he wasn't even trying, as he was worn out. "If we had fought 100 times, I'd admit you'd probably win a lot of those fights. But I win this time. Give it up." Silence came from the ninja in response. Nothing was said for several seconds until he spoke again. "Your goal is to become Hokage, is it not?" he responded, surprising Naruto, wondering how he knew that. "Well, my goal is to serve Zabuza-sama with my life," he shouted and charged Naruto, raising a fist in one last attack. Naruto dodged the attack and then delivered a blow to his neck with the flat side of his sword, knocking him down. The ninja was on his back looking up at him, and Naruto reached down and pulled the mask off. "Haku?" he said, looking down at the feminine boy, recognizing him. "What are you doing here?" "I am Zabuza's servant, like you and the Uchiha. I have a bloodline. I was hated and feared for it. My own father tried to kill me when he found out," he said to him, surprising Naruto. "My home and my mother were destroyed at the hands of those who fear Kekkei Genkai. Our curse that separates us from normal people," he said bitterly. "We are granted abilities beyond that of normal people, but that makes us feared and hated from people. Our bloodlines make us targets of anger and mistrust from the world. I'll never forget that day as long as I live." Naruto, hearing this, remembered what had happened to his cousin. His clan was wiped out by the Mizukage due to the fear of Shikatsumiku. Kimimaro had led a sad and lonely life because of his bloodline as well. "Zabuza took me in, raised me as his own. To be his weapon, I'd do anything for him to repay that debt that I owe him. Even dying for him would be preferable to the life I once had. If I can be of no use to him, then I deserve death." Naruto, looking at him, saw Kimimaro as well. The two having been hated and feared cause of their bloodline and latching onto the first person who showed them kindness. "And the same thing that happened to both of them probably happened to my mom's clan as well," he thought to himself. "Kill me," Haku said to him and closed his eyes. Naruto looked at him and raised his blade up. Sasuke watched on, wondering if he would do it. To Haku's surprise, the blow didn't come, and opening his eyes saw Naruto retract the bone into his arm. "I'm not killing you. I don't want that blood on my hands. Yeah, it's most likely that now people will mistrust and hate me even more when they find out I have a bloodline. But I'd rather face their insults and jeers than hide away in the shadows from them. You who have spent your entire life looked down upon deserve better," he said, showing him mercy. "Zabuza can be stopped. We'll stop him, but keep him alive and bring you back to Konoha him as well if he agrees. You have my word and my nindo that neither of you will be harmed or persecuted." "I swear it on my nindo," he said to him in all seriousness. Now let's go, he said and pulled him up. Haku looked at him not sure what to think when he sensed a flash of chakra. Zabuza-sama, he shouted and ran towards where they was at. Naruto and Sasuke quickly followed him. Kakashi ducked a wild swing and flipped backwards, avoiding the attacks from Zabuza. The two had been fighting for a while and neither had gained the upper hand. Zabuza slashed at him and he avoided it. Kakashi noticed that the demon was now starting to show signs of being worn out as sweat covered his face. Time to end this, he muttered and got a kunai out. Zabuza attacked him again and he avoided the attack and in the process cut his own hand, spilling blood. One more should do it. Zabuza went to slice him in half with it and Kakashi did hand symbols. Kachiyose number jutsu, he shouted and disappeared in a poof of smoke, and much to Zabuza's surprise a pair of large dogs appeared in place and bit down on his hands and shoulders. Damn, he shouted when suddenly Kakashi appearing behind him stabbed him with the kunai in the shoulder blades in a half-second each. Zabuza cried out in pain as he lost his grip on his weapon and dropped it, and the dogs held him in place despite his attempts as his arms were now useless. It's over, Zabuza, Kakashi said and began making hand symbols. It's time I end this once and for all, he said, and lightning started to form around him as he charged his attack. No, a voice shouted, and Tazuna and Sakura saw a boy running towards them. Running as fast as he could to try and stop it with Naruto and Sasuke behind him. Reikiri. Kakashi began to make his move when Naruto suddenly shouted. Stop, he said, and calling on his speed appeared in front of Kakashi, who had to divert his attack, which went off harmlessly in a different direction. Naruto, what are you doing? He asked him, wondering what had gotten into him. There's a different way. We don't have to do this. Naruto, if you think Zabuza has some good in his heart, you're crazy. This guy must be stopped. But sensei, if we don't stop him now, he'll just try again as long as Gato continues to pay him money. Sorry, but this is the only way. Suddenly mocking laughter was heard and the entire group turned and saw a large group of thugs walking towards them, and at the front was Gato. So Zabuza, you've failed again, he said with a sneer. No matter, if you want something done right, do it yourself. I'll have each and every one of you killed this instant as a lesson to this nest of maggots. What will happen to those who oppose me? Not one of you will be spared. Yeah, and that stupid boy will be killed, Zabuza, slowly. Plus more of my men will show up with that other fool's head as well, he said and cackled. That fool is here, a voice said, and he turned his head and saw standing behind him Kimimaro Kaguya. Naruto saw with him a red-headed girl as well, with a hat on her head and purple bow around her waist. What? Gato shouted. Impossible, you should be dead. What happened to my men? He said as he could not believe that one person could defeat them all. They are all dead, Kimimaro responded. And the rest of your goons have fled the place, you low-life piece of shit. The redhead said to him. If you're going to rule through fear, at least have the strength to back it up, you dumbass. She said again, and Gato saw behind them several of the villagers with Inari in the lead, armed with weapons prepared to fight. Gato sneered in fury and anger. Zabuza, kill them. I'll give you a quick and painless death if you wipe them all out, he said, and that perhaps was the dumbest thing he could have said, still expecting the man who he had betrayed to still be loyal. Get your dogs off me, copy nin, Zabuza said to him, and he looked him in the eyes and understood. Kakashi sent the ninja dogs away. First things first, he said, and suddenly grabbed Haku, surprising him even weak. Ned, he still had enough strength to do what he was going to do. I release you from your debt. Find your own path now, he said, and threw him overboard, surprising them. Haku landed in the water and was swept away by the currents. Zabuza-sama, he shouted as he realized what he was going to do, and despite his attempts could not get back there. Haku, Zabuza Momochi said, watching him go out of sight as the waves took him away, and he closed his eyes, remembering their time together. There's not much point in following a guy who's basically had a death wish for 10 or so years. So thanks, boy, thanks for keeping me human a little while longer, he said, and removed the bandages that covered his mouth. But I think before I die I got one last fight left in me. Hey Naruto, he shouted at Naruto, surprising him. Toss me a kunai, he shouted, and Naruto cautiously did so. He caught it with his teeth and put the handle part in his mouth. Fool, you think to stop me without the use of your arms? Gato shouted at him. You're lucky, you piece of garbage, that I am injured, Zabuza said, and his eyes narrowed. Cause it makes things a lot more fun. he said, and he charged head-on right into the group. He cut his way through the horde feeling no pain or wound. Not even when a spear got lodged into his back. The demon of the mist cut them down one by one, a devil in human flesh that made them run for their lives he was as he slowly made his way to his target. A true warrior's death, Kimimaro said, watching it with rare passion in his eyes, witnessing it. Above all else, the Kaguya clan desired death in battle and taking as many enemies with him before he died. It was a fitting end for the warrior clan. Gato barely was able to say a curse before Zabuza decapitated his head from his body with it, and with one last burst of strength kicked the body and head off the bridge and down into the water, ending the tyrant's brutal reign of terror. At long last this nightmare has ended, Tazuna said, witnessing it, and a tear fell out of his eye as his dream could finally happen. Zabuza Momochi fell to one knee as his wounds finally took their toll on him. He looked up and saw snow starting to fall. Blood flowed from many of the wounds as he had cuts and stabs littered over his body, along with a lifetime of scars that he had had his entire life. Looking up at the falling snow, he started to smile. Smiling still, he fell on his back and closed his eyes for the last time. "It's over," Kakashi said to them. "Our mission is complete," he said as the group started to cheer, knowing that their lives were finally freed. They were thanked by Tazuna and his family as they could now rebuild Wave and turn it into the place they dreamed it could be. Naruto looked over, wondering where Haku was at as the boy was out of sight and wondering what he was going to do now. Haku had to make his own choices now. Later on, Naruto saw Kimimaro walking away and he went to follow him. He passed by the red-headed girl who had stayed in the back out of sight but noticed her looking at him as he went to follow his cousin. "Kimimaro," he said to him, and saw him clutching his chest for a moment. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," he replied. "You've gotten strong trash." Naruto rolled his eyes, used to it. "Yeah, nice to see you're okay as well. Who's that girl who was with you?" he said, and put his arms behind the back of his head and closed his eyes. "Well, too bad you didn't get. I did pretty good if I say so myself. I owe you one for teaching me how to use my bloodline. That boy back there earlier has one too." "Is that so?" Kimimaro asked, and Naruto saw him with his back to him. "I am happy to see that you have gotten stronger," he said, and then began coughing for a few seconds. "When we get back to Konoha we shall resume your training," he said, and pulled out a vial and took what appeared to be some medicine. "In due time, I'll have taught you everything I can teach you," he said, and began walking away. Naruto watched him go and saw the red-headed girl walk after him. "I don't know why Kimimaro is taking an interest in you all of a sudden, kid," Tayuya said to him, and he looked at her. "But if this keeps up, him pushing himself the way he is, he'll be dead in a matter of weeks," she said, surprising him, and went after him. The news surprised Naruto with what she just said and could only watch them exit Wave. And even though there was hundreds of people celebrating at the moment, it felt like he was the only person in the world. Flashback 15 years ago. Once more, the red-headed woman cried out, giving out instructions to the woman who cried out in pain and pushed, giving a great heave. "Good, it's almost there. One more push, sister," she ordered as her younger sibling was in the middle of giving birth. The small room was full of people as the woman laying on the cot was in the process of giving birth. Her sister, a maid, a man with white hair who watched from the doorway, and an older man with gray hair as well. The two had red dots on their foreheads, and the elder seemed more concerned while his son looked on, a bored look on his face. The woman cried out as she gave another push, this time with all her might. "It's out. Just a second, let me get him," her sister said, and lifted up the infant as the maid wiped her forehead. "A boy, it is a boy, Ayako-chan," she exclaimed, holding the small child who had 2 red dots on his forehead, and put him in a blanket. The younger man scoffed and turned and left the room, and the woman glared at her brother-in-law as she hated the fact that her sister was married to a man who was so cruel. She doubted he would care for the child, so long as he had a weapon to use. "Let me see him," the elderly man said, and gently took the child from his aunt. The old man, the current head of the clan and the newborn's grandfather, examined him in the light and then put the babe close to him, holding him in his arms. "Since the beginning of time, our two clans, the Uzumaki and Kaguya, have served alongside and fought with one another, as our families are the key of our true strength," he said, whispering to him. "We are fighters, warriors who do not back down from any challenge and shall always be there for each other. When one is threatened, the other protects it." Show me, young one. Show me you possess the same strength and spirit of our two clans. The child then let out a wail and then started crying, his cries filling the room. Although his aunt was known for her wildness and ferocity, she could not hide the tears going down her face as she witnessed it. Ho ho! Already practicing his battle cries, the head of the Kaguya said, smiling and beaming with pride. This child, Kushina and Ayako, shall be most special indeed, he said to his stepdaughters and handed the child to his mother. She cooed softly and shushed him as he began to calm down, feeling his mother's touch. Sleep, my little Kimimaro, sleep, she said as he fell asleep in her arms. Present day. It had been over a month since the events at Wave, and Naruto Uzumaki was at the training grounds practicing his technique by himself. Team 7 was done for the day as they had finished training and he was getting some extra work done. The blonde practicing his form and footwork. He thought back to the events of Wave, his battle with Haku and using his Kekkei Genkai for the first real time in a fight. Haku had disappeared after it had ended, thrown from the bridge by his late master Zabuza, who then cut down their attackers using only a kunai at the cost of his own life, ending the reign of terror that Wave had endured for so long and allowing it to finally recover and connect with the mainland. And much to his surprise, he and Team 7 had discovered that the bridge builder Tazuna had named it after him. Naruto at first tried to decline it as he didn't deserve to have a bridge named after him, but the old man and his family had insisted on it, as he had helped the town and its people regain their hope that had been taken from them. Yet despite it, his mood hadn't been the same after he had saw his cousin leave. Kimimaro had left without them, heading back to wherever he lived, telling him they'd continue their training later on. That girl who he had saw with them had talked to him a moment as well. He didn't know who she was or her connection to him, but she seemed to know his cousin as she had left with him. What she said surprised and took a lot of wind out of his sails. If this keeps up, he continues pushing his body like this, he's going to die. What did she mean? Was Kimimaro sick? What was wrong with him? He had noticed him cough at times whenever they had trained, but he hadn't thought of anything of it. He didn't think there was something wrong with him. How foolish and stupid he was for not seeing what was going on with him. For thinking it was nothing. When he thought about it, Kimimaro coughed quite a bit and sometimes saw him spit up blood as well. Yet he was too ignorant to think that something wasn't wrong with him. What if he dies? Then I'll be alone, again, he said to himself. Kimimaro was his only family, the only family he had left and one who he hadn't even discovered until a few months ago. And for him to lose him as quickly as they had discovered one another wasn't right in his eyes. It's not fair. Why'd I always have to be alone? He said, as even though Kimimaro called him trash and rarely smiled, Naruto felt as if a part of him had finally found something that he had been searching for a long time. And to lose it so fast, it would be as if the gods had decided he would be their plaything. He sat down on the ground and sighed, wondering just what it was that was wrong with him. The next day. Who are you? State your name and business. The kunoichi said to Kimimaro as they were in a meadowland and a few miles away from the village. By the look of it, she had been training in the area. She wore a pink shirt and blue pants and had her brown hair in 2 buns. Around her head she wore a hatai 8 with the symbol of the hidden leaf on it. He did not answer and took a few steps forward, meaning to walk past her. She gripped the bow staff she had with a tighter grip. If you are heading to Konoha, I'll need to know why so I can inform others up ahead and at the gate so you can pass through, she said, a bit more conviction and determination in her voice. Kimimaro didn't answer as he noted she had gotten into a fighting stance and her form showed she was able to handle herself in a fight. It was a ninja's duty to protect the village from any unknown or would-be threats from the highest jonin to the lowest genin. He found it somewhat amusing that she thought she would be able to stop him. I'll give you one last warning, state who you are and what your purpose is, she said, but he detected a hint of nervousness in her voice. Shaking his head and letting out a weak cough, he moved forward, not wanting to be bothered by this. Hey, stay back, she yelled out at him as he advanced. Cursing under her breath as she didn't expect this to happen while she did some private training, she decided there was only one thing to do. She attacked. Leaping up, she threw multiple shuriken at him and in the blink of an eye he avoided the thrown weapons easily, not even one coming close to hitting him. This surprised Ten and she quickly threw kunai but saw him dodge it easily and by the look of it wasn't even trying as he had a bored look on his face. Growling, she threw double the amount this time only for him to effortlessly dodge them. He knows where my attacks are going to be, even before I throw them. She thought to herself and clutched her bow staff she had and charged him, hoping to catch him off guard with a frontal assault. She spun her wooden weapon and swung, but he dodged it easily. She was skilled with the weapon, as she practiced with it nearly an hour a day, but she found all her attacks and hits not even coming close to connecting with his body. He was even faster than her teammate, she guessed, as he was making her feel like a fool as he hadn't even did one offensive move against her. She thrusted her staff hoping to hit him in the chest, which he dodged, and she spun it and swung, aiming for his head, which he blocked with one hand holding it in place. Great, now he's just mocking me, she thought, and struggled to pull it free out of his hard grip. Suddenly, before she could react, he reached down and picking up dirt threw it right in her face, causing her to cry out and shield her face. He then went in for the finish. 10-10 opened her eyes and swung her staff wildly, but only hit air and noticed he wasn't in front of her. She looked around, scanning the area, but didn't see him anywhere. Where'd he go? He couldn't have just teleported. He's not that fast. She looked but didn't see him when she suddenly felt a hand press against the side of her neck. Damn, she started to say when pressure was applied and she went unconscious. She started to fall but was caught by Kimimaro, who caught her around the waist with his other arm before she hit the ground. He should just leave her there. She had attacked him first and he hadn't until just now done anything to assault her. But he knew if she was found unconscious like this, people would get suspicious, and the last thing he wanted was 30 or so of their Anbu bearing down on him. Sighing, he lifted her and her weapon up and threw 10-10 over his shoulder and began carrying her as he continued on his way. At the training grounds, Team 7 was busy training under the eye of their sensei, who looked on from his reading spot at the group. Kakashi looked on as they worked. Their skills had improved recently as of late, but they still were dysfunctional at times, he knew. Sasuke and Naruto were neck and neck, and he would put them about even despite the fact that Sasuke had obtained the Sharingan a month back in Wave. Sasuke had been wanting more training from him as of late, including wanting to learn how to walk on water, as he was determined to master his Sharingan. Although as of late he had noticed some of the looks Sasuke had been giving Naruto. As if there was something between he didn't know about going on between them. He had expected them to be rivals the moment he first saw them, as both were proud. He and his teammate in his youth was rivals as well, but they had looked out for one another as well. Sasuke and Naruto didn't have that same feelings towards one another. Sakura still fond over Sasuke but not as much, and was rather neutral towards Naruto, only yelling at him when he was annoying her, so that was a plus. A sign she was starting to take things serious for a change. Naruto's training with that Kimimaro person he believed was the key part as to why he had gotten better so fast, as he was night and day from the first time he had seen the blonde, as he had figured he would have his hands full with him who had finished last in his class and barely graduated. The boy, as of late he had found him reading The Art of War as well. He watched on at them as the time passed. All right, that's enough, he called out, and they stopped what they were doing. That's enough for today, take the rest of the day off and be back here tomorrow, he said, and stood up. You're letting us off early? Naruto said to him, as this was unusual. Usually he was late and kept them for hours. Fatigue is of no use for a shinobi, he explained to them. Tomorrow we shall work on adding chakra to our attacks and speed and hone our reflexes better. Plus I have an announcement to make in a few days, he said with a smile under his mask. You may find it in, he started to say when he sensed something going on. Sorry, but I gotta go, he said, and disappeared in a poof of smoke. What's up with sensei? Sakura asked, not understanding what just happened. I don't know, Naruto responded, wondering why he left in the middle of something. Sure, he looked the mysterious entrance and exit, but those were just for show. This one seemed important. In one of the empty streets in the lower parts of Konoha, Kakashi landed on a roof and saw a pair of masked Anbu perched like gargoyles. Casually he walked over to them, as they had sensed him and knew who he was without having to look. The group had their chakra hidden so to prevent any skilled shinobi from noticing them. So what's the holdup? He asked the two, and noted there was several other Anbu as well in different spots. Some stranger came in carrying an unconscious Leaf Genin. We're currently analyzing the situation to see if he's a threat, the Anbu captain said, no emotion in his voice. Oh? Kakashi responded and looked around, noting the Anbu spread out in different hiding spots. A bit much for just one guy. We're not taking any chances. This kid, although he's by himself, could be dangerous. Plus he may use the kunoichi as a hostage, the captain responded. Where is he? He's about to pass underneath us. Kakashi looked and his lone eye widened in surprise when he saw the figure and the person he was carrying. He noted the captain was ready to make a signal to attack when he passed them. "Hold your men, friend. This guy means us no harm," he said to them, and the captain looked at him. "He has special visitation rights from the Hokage himself and so far has done no harm or been no threat to Konoha. As for the kunoichi, she's unharmed except for the fact she's unconscious as something happened. There's a misunderstanding going on here. If he had been a threat, I doubt he would be calmly walking around the way he is, as he would be holding her for ransom," he said to him. The captain looked at him and slowly called off his men. "We'll keep an eye on him, Kakashi, and watch from a distance for now, in case you are wrong." "Do that. I assure you he's no harm to the village," Kakashi said to them and looked down at the figure. If the bushy-browed maniac who considered him his rival had found out about this, he would no doubt be challenging the boy immediately for in his eyes harming his student and molesting her. Kimimaro finally found a bench and walking over placed the still unconscious Tenten on it. He had to enter through a secret path to avoid detection from the leaf and managed to find an area that was poorly guarded and entered through it. Placing her on it and in a manner that most would think she was taking a nap on the bench so to avoid suspicion in case anyone saw her. She'd awake within the hour and doubted she'd be able to recall what happened. "Ah, what have you done to Tenten?" a voice said, and he turned and saw standing there dressed in a green outfit was a boy with wild bushy brows pointing a finger at him. The boy was glaring at him. "It is a good thing I decided to see if I could break my previous record between here and the border between Fire Country," he said, and got into a fighting stance. "For I have discovered evil man such as yourself preying on an innocent maiden," the boy continued to say, not giving him a chance to explain. "This shall not go unavenged. Prepare yourself, my unknown opponent. You shall suffer a grievous defeat from the green youthful beast of Konoha," he shouted and prepared to attack. Naruto was by himself as the blonde-haired boy was thinking. He was thinking back to the fight with Haku that he and Sasuke had had. "Sasuke's got his Sharingan now, but I'm surprised he hasn't told anyone about the fact that I have a bloodline as well. I'd figure he'd blab to Sakura and Sensei about it or tell somebody," he said to himself as he remembered how surprised Sasuke was when he revealed it. Nah, Sasuke may be pretty cocky and full of pride, but he wouldn't tell anyone. That's not like him. He'd try to surpass a person's strength by his own instead of telling people. "Odds are he's training right now to try and counter my own strength," he said and shook his head at the thought of his rival. "I do wonder how Haku is right now. It's been a month and I wonder where he is. If Zabuza hadn't tossed him he could have come back with us," he said, "but he may also have committed suicide as well considering how devoted to that guy he was. Well, no point wondering about it, I'm getting something to eat." Heading towards Ichiraku's Naruto was surprised when Kakashi appeared in front of him, a look of urgency in his eye. "Naruto, it's best you come with me," he said, and his tone told him it was important. "It's about your other teacher." Kimimaro? What was he doing here at this time? Quickly he followed after him and the two headed into the streets of Konoha. "Take this," the green-wearing boy shouted, throwing a quick kick at Kimimaro, who evaded it as a group of people watched on, some of them cheering. Kimimaro cursed his luck as this idiot of a boy had attacked him and did not give him a chance to explain. Part of him resisted the urge to run him through with a sword. The boy threw fast series of punches and kicks at Kimimaro, who noted that his taijutsu was superb for one his age, perhaps even give him a small challenge. The boy did a spin kick aiming for his head and he dodged it and backflipped out of the way. "Oh ho ho, most impressive. Your defensive skills are excellent, my opponent. Not many can block and evade my attacks like you can," he said and got into a pose, sticking his thumb up. "However, I cannot allow you to go without paying for what you did." "Hya," he shouted and charged him, fists flying. Kimimaro blocked and dodged the attacks and did an overhead flip in the air and kicked him from behind, sending him crashing into a store wall. A body-sized dent appeared in the wall due to the force of it. The boy, landing on the ground, kipped up and rubbed his face, feeling a bit embarrassed. Sensei isn't around, but I believe now is an important time as ever to protect a precious person," he exclaimed and went to remove a weight that was around his legs. Before he could, Kimimaro dashed towards him and before he could defend himself delivered an open palm thrust to his jaw, knocking him silly. He then tripped him up, knocking him to the ground. Two bones sprouted out of his hands and caught his head in a scissor-like position on the floor. The boy quickly realized that struggling to get free would be a risky move, as it appeared as if the swords had appeared instantly to him in the crowd. "Kimimaro-san? What are you doing?" A voice called out, and he turned his head and saw Naruto and his sensei heading towards them, and the girl who had her hair in buns with them. "Dealing with this fool of a fool," he muttered in reply. "That's enough. The last thing you want is to cause even more trouble." "Let him go," Kakashi said calmly to him. Kimimaro didn't say anything but let him go and put his swords away. "You won't get away so easily," the boy said, getting up. "I shall avenge her," he shouted, getting back into a fighting stance. "Lee, give it a rest." Ten snapped at him, having regained consciousness. "Nothing happened. But I saw him. He had a look of pure evil in his eyes," the boy protested. Ten shook her head and faint blush appeared on her face, embarrassed at what she'd have to explain. "I'd attack him a mile away from Konoha thinking he was a threat, and he knocked me out in self-defense. Apparently he took me back here. He didn't do anything to me," she said. "What? But Ten, how could you be defeated so close to the exams? This will put a stain on Sensei's evaluation of us." "Give it a rest, Lee," she snapped again. "You owe this guy an apology." The boy shook the back of his head as he stared at Kimimaro. "I'm not sure what to believe happened, but I, Rock Lee, owe you an apology, my friend," he said, and bowed in remorse. "My actions have shamed me as I let my youthful spirit get the best of me at times. If you wish it so, I shall commit seppuku to make it up to you." That won't be necessary," Naruto said, butting in. "Your sensei needs all three of you to go into the exams, right? You can't go if you do that," he said, being a rare voice of reason. "You can make it up by performing well there," he said to Lee. "I see. Sensei does hope to prove himself to you, copy Nin and your students," Lee said to Kakashi. "For that, I shall warm up with 100 laps around Konoha," he said, and in a green blur dashed away. "He's a special kind of ninja," Kakashi said, watching Rock Lee go. "You have no idea," Ten said dryly, and walked away as well. The crowd started to disperse as well, but Naruto heard some of them muttering "freak" under their breath and aiming it at Kimimaro. If his cousin heard them, he either didn't listen or ignored them. After training with Naruto for a few hours, Kimimaro then started to leave when Naruto called out after him. "Kimimaro, wait," he shouted, and ran after him. "Wait, let me ask you something," he said, and Kimimaro looked confused. "Are you okay?" Kimimaro looked at him, his face blank. I am fine. You're a lot paler than you was when we first met. It's nothing for you to concern yourself with, Naruto," he said, calling him by his name for the first time. "We'll resume your training in about a month. I have other matters to attend to for now. But, you look exhausted. See a doctor here or something." "I don't want to lose my only family." Kimimaro looked at him, genuinely surprised at his words. Did he know? "I'll be fine, Naruto. I'll get better. The man I serve now is working on a cure. In due time I shall be much better," he said as he saw the worried look on his face. "Once I'm feeling better, I can show you the true arts of Shikatsumiku," he said, and turned and left. Naruto watched him go. One thing was certain. 2 days later in Otogakure, Kimimaro made it to the headquarters of the place and saw the Sound Four. Walking past them, ignoring Sakin and Kitamaru's sarcastic welcoming, he went to his quarters. Tayuya, the Sound Kunoichi, watched him go as the others made remarks. She had told the others he was training in Wave when they had returned a month ago, and although the others didn't buy it 100%, they had stopped questioning where he was going. As far as she knew, he was busy with that blonde kid. But she didn't know why, as she hadn't followed him again, as he had threatened her when they got back not to follow him again. And even half dead, he was capable of killing all of them in the blink of an eye. Still, her curiosity made her want to find out what was so special about that boy. "He's here. He's returned," a Sound Ninja said, coming up to them. "Our master has returned at last," he said to them. "All of you, including Kimimaro, are to be there in the throne room at once." Minutes later, the group was all assembled and kneeling in front of a figure seated on a throne. "I trust everything went well during my absence," the man said with a hiss. His skin was a pale white and he wore a light and black outfit with a purple bow like they did. "Yes, master, no trouble happened during your stay in Suna," Sakin said. "Good," the black-haired man said. His golden eyes, which were like that of a snake, seemed to be looking at them all personally. With him was one of his spies and elite men who wore glasses and had white hair and wore a leaf hitai aid as part of his disguise who served as his bodyguard. In 2 months' time, we and Suna will attack Konoha. Kimimaro raised his head at the news surprising him. I have long desired the destruction of the leaf and I shall have it. With this alliance with the Kekkei we will bring it to its knees. The man said, clutching a hand into a fist. During the exams our men will infiltrate and destroy it, and also obtain the last Uchiha as well. Yes, Orochimaru-sama, Kidomaru said, bowing his head. Orochimaru, the snake Sannin and traitor of Konoha, stood up. All of you shall play a key part of this. We have much planning to do, he said and looked at them and laughed darkly. Kimimaro looking on wondered what this meant, for him and his cousin. The next day in Konoha. Alright, like I said a few days ago, I have an important announcement to make. Kakashi said to Team 7 at the end of the day. The Chunin exams, held twice a year, is coming up in 1 month. And thanks to our mission in Wave, we have qualified for it. He said to them, Sasuke, Sakura, Naruto, you will be given the chance to take the exams and have the opportunity to possibly become Chunin. The odds of a rookie ninja on his first try becoming Chunin though are slim though. You really mean this, sensei? Sakura asked. Yeah, is this a joke? Naruto asked as well and he smirked under his mask. I'm being serious, you three. He said to them. There are still some areas to iron out with this, but you have shown improvement in your areas. Sasuke with your bloodline, Sakura with chakra control, and Naruto you've excelled in both chakra control and skill. I believe in 1 month's time we shall be ready to take the exams. After this, we shall see if any of you are ready to take the next step in the ninja path. Naruto nodded and looked at his teammates. Alright, I'll show you, Kimimaro, that I'm worthy of learning the arts of Shikatsumiku.